All right, I'm gonna call to order the Hancock County, Hancock County Commissioners Special Meeting for September 10th, 2024.
Move to adopt the agenda as presented.
Second motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Guess we'll start looking at our initial budget. Two. Yeah, anything you add to it?
Well, the reimbursement, EMA revenue reimbursement
Yes,
is a set amount regardless of what your budget is.
it
correct?
is, that's correct.
Why did it go down?
It's going down nationally 10%. So if that federal government has reduced it by 10%, each the state department is reducing each of the 16 counties by 10%.
Reasonable?
Yes. Start.
Jeez, yeah. I mean, he did a good job. Most of it's a zero increase. With the rules of that being two.
Minus two.
Minus two. Yeah, we should do all of it.
Yeah. Full adjustment. No, thank you.
That's it.
Anything else? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. BA.
I assume we're doing Ian's office, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. I just assumed.
I don't understand what I'm reading. It says in revenues, 103 disposition, first payments. Actually, the budget in 24 was 18, and 22 is a minus 2,000. What's that mean?
Monica probably did a typo.
It's actually a $4,000 increase.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah, sorry.
so with that said, is the worksheet that you gave us correct? It must
The
be
amount?
because you used the.
The amount is correct.
Yeah.
It's just that
That
I
note.
don't like those percentage columns.
The truth matters, I never look at it to find errors.
That's right.
Yes. And that has nothing to do with the overall balance on any of it.
No, no. That's why. Sorry.
Should just be plus 2%. Excuse me, plus, no, it should be 4,000, not 2,000.
Yeah.
You know what, I bet you that's from last year.
Yeah. I don't have
The
it.
same is true with revenue transfers.
Yeah, sorry.
Which one, Bill? Oh, the transfers, yeah.
Should say zero. That should say minus 2,500, right?
Oh, it should say,
On the reserve transfers, it'd be minus 2,500, right?
These are revenues, so it's,
yeah.
overall, your revenues were up by 2,500.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, 15.
Well, looks like
It's minus 2,500 and plus 4,000,
Plus 1,000.
plus 1,000, or minus 1,000.
The miscellaneous on 800.
Yeah,
I got 48 and 24, 50,500, that's 2,500.
Oh, yeah. I missed that. But that doesn't affect anything that we're.
As far as the salaries are concerned, I just saw this 2 hours ago when Monica sent this to me. I wasn't aware of any votes being done at the last commissioners meeting where you cut the salary lines back to the 3.2% COLA. So did I miss something at the end of the commissioners meeting that this was something that was decided on?
Well, this was something, we had decided the 3.2 very early when we set the COLA.
But was nothing,
So we
was
have not
ever
done-
voted on? So I was a little surprised when I
Well,
saw
it was
this.
voted on because they
Yes.
voted on it when they said it, when we did the budget. So
Yes.
the only reason that it differs now is because each department head, not all, but most department heads changed it on their own. So the first column is the department budget, the
Mhm.
second column is the commissioner's budget. The commissioners instructed us 3.2%. If and when they want to change it from 3.2%, that's when that'll get adjusted. But right now, they already voted 3.2 as a starting figure to plug in there.
And is
So
it,
we can't just take every department head's different figure and plug it in there until we hear from them what they want, because now we're working on the commissioner,
okay, so this is gonna be the moving target today is the
Yes.
commissioner's line?
that line.
That, your original request is still in.
That's correct.
Yes.
I just noticed that it also deleted all of the notes that I had put in as well.
Because everybody has that original version of their worksheets.
So the budget advisory committee will not see any of the notes that I had entered into there, correct?
I mean, there's nothing set in stone. I can put those back in.
No, I'm just asking, what's the budget advisory committee gonna see for notes?
So-
They're just gonna have to ask
Ultimately,
questions.
they're gonna see, I mean, which is why initially we had said to department heads, but that you weren't here then. You know, you draw up a narrative and attach it with whatever you're submitting. So that would be much easier to give to the BAC to attach with that section of the budget binder rather than a little cubicle that's, see what
So
I'm saying? So,
this,
yeah, something like
Okay,
that. The
okay.
narrative sections is really what would be helpful
Okay.
to the BAC.
Because maybe I should know this by now. What goes to the VAC is what the commissioners send to the VAC,
If you-
not what the department head, right? Is that the way it's laid out?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's your budget, so you tell us, but last year, how we did it was that we agreed that it was acceptable or desired that the first portion of the department request would go in. And then the commissioners is the actual budget thing that gets, again, sent to the next level for the BAC to work on.
But
They will
departments,
still see the initial numbers.
yeah, but departments have a narrative that's usually accompanies this.
I mean, that's the ideal, but if they don't give us a narrative, all we would have is basically
Yeah.
the little block.
Okay.
Which is very hard to fit everything in, because as we go each level, we are adding another column into the spreadsheet.
so if I provide this to you by the end of the month, that will go into the budget books at that point, or have you already prepared the budget?
No, no,
books?
I mean, the BAC one. So right now, all we're trying to do after today is to get something finalized. We'll go to the public hearing in a couple of weeks.
Okay,
And what goes to the hearing is what we're
What
submitting.
you're submitting to the BAC.
That's it.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it's based on.
You know, if the department head proposed an amount, came to us at the first meeting, if there's mutual agreement, we came up with a different number. Is their request changed?
We did do that with these ones where, like, there was an error in it, or after you calculated, you asked a question and they
For any,
said.
yeah, for any reason.
So as long as the department head was in agreement with the change, we kept those, because that basically became their ask, I guess, really, their real ask.
Right.
So,
So-
but if they
You
didn't,
understand what I said, Joe? So what happens is that anytime you disagree, you can't come to an agreement on what we should be. The BAC looks at that and says, okay, we have we have an issue here, that's when you get an opportunity to make your case.
Correct. Yep.
Rest of this, in my opinion, we've looked at. The rest of this,
The rest of the expenditures,
yeah. I mean,
then we're looking at it again.
yeah,
Um, We discussed, back on revenues, right, we discussed some revenue from Washington County for certain issues. Expense with vehicles, stuff like that. Shouldn't there be a revenue line for revenue in Washington County for,
So I know the DA went and met with them, and I know that they basically said, we'll get back to you. Michelle and I kind of briefly talked about it, but I've received no official answer from them in terms of how that's gonna be handled. So,
well, I think, quite honestly, I'm less concerned about from them, from us. In other words, we're gonna decide what the fair share amount fee is going to be in Washington County for the vehicle, and when we assess that. We're going to pay it, that's the issue, but nevertheless, Washington County is gonna benefit from the vehicle that we purchased for him. For county, Washington County business, and they should be paying us to use their vehicles. So somewhere along the way, Michelle, you and Bob will sit down and put together a revenue figure for what we believe we need to charge Washington County next year for.
well, you pretty much said what you're gonna charge mileage rate anyway. So we conveyed that to them. The issue was, is what's their response? Are they gonna pay us? They're not gonna pay us? Are they gonna tell the DA that he can't use Hancock County's truck in Washington County? I don't have a response from them, and they haven't been really willing to provide me with one.
When I was down there 2 weeks ago, the understanding that from what I was talking to the county administrator was that she was directed by the commissioners for the two administrators in Hancock and Washington County to talk this over and come to a conclusion, but it didn't sound like there was any reimbursement for a vehicle. Just, and now and as of right now, they're still only giving us half of what we're submitting for mileage. They're only paying for half of
And they're
that.
paying that directly. In other words, he submits the bill directly and then put that out. So we don't get reimbursed.
No, you're getting reimbursed for the mileage.
Since
We
when
pay
the
the full,
vehicle came online, right?
Yes,
we pay the full bill, they pay us half.
but right now they're only paying a quarter of that. So,
Again, somewhere along the way, it doesn't have to be done today, of course, but somewhere along the way before we finish, there should be a revenue.
there is a revenue line, it's that miscellaneous 800, that's for the $1,000,
That's for
The
travel.
miscellaneous.
yes.
So, I mean, the issue becomes is if we bill them and they don't pay, what do you want me to do?
You know that one, yeah?
well, that 15, if you go over the expenditures and you look at travel and mileage, those two numbers don't correlate, right? In other words,
Right, because you
that's not
have,
what they're paying.
that's correct, because you have two, you've got, Mr. Granger, and you have Tofflin also coming out of that, because he splits his time between Washington and Hancock County as well.
So what else comes out of the 15,000? What can you?
I would have to look I'd have to look in Trio in order to pull up the account right now to tell you what's actually being paid out of that.
Must be a lot more than just mileage.
Yeah, trade off.
Well, not all, but
We're spending $15,000 all for travel to get in Washington County, only 1,000 for Washington County.
That's a problem.
Something.
Well, you've also got the prosecutors conference coming out of that.
Okay.
You have other, it's not just those two people. You've got prosecutor travel coming out of there, some of their education for where they go to spend, where they're staying for hotels and stuff like that.
And I would assume they have a similar line for theirs. Is that only, I guess the question is that only our share or?
Yes, it's only here for Hancock County.
Perfect.
Well, this went from 10 to 15. It says the increase is based upon the travel
We're gonna have, they,
cost for Bob and Toff between Hancock and Washington County. Well, that's $5,000. How come we're only getting 1,000 from Washington County? We're paying 4,000.
that also though was continued education. I added some continuing education in there as well for next year. In that line as well.
Is it the travel expenses of the continuing education?
Yes, that's correct.
Well, the continuing education is down in training and registrations, I would assume. It's the travel to those things.
That's
You're
correct.
talking.
Yes.
so there's mileage for Robert Granger, mileage for Toff, mileage for CR, I don't know. There's gas paid from here. Meals for Mr. Granger. All employees, all gas, all employees travel.
So we can't assume that it's
Just Bob's money.
Washington County. In fact, it sounds like, just judging from hearing what it is, that probably $1,000, because we're talking about 5,000. Right.
Oh, no. Have you seen Washington County's proposed budget? Joe?
I have it over in my office. I haven't looked at it yet. I just
Are
got
there
it.
similar lines like this with similar amounts for Washington County?
I have absolutely no idea. I had nothing to do with the Washington
Well, do
County
you have a
budget.
$15,000 travel line in Washington County budget?
I can't remember what it is. But I haven't seen it.
Obviously, we have more prosecutors here though in Hancock County than they do in Washington County is also. So we've got a bigger staff than they do down there.
I mean, just off the cuff, it sounds like it's in order to me. You know, there's a $5,000 difference, we have a bigger staff, you know, all those things. I mean, it sounds like if any, half of $5,000, 2,500. We're arguing over $1,500 here, I think. You agree, Bill, or am I up with you?
I mean, the continuing education costs, that's nothing that is set by the state. We don't set those prices, and those are credit hours that they have to have in order to keep their license to practice. So
But so are those,
But that's in training.
that's in training.
Okay.
So you, but like, for instance, you know, it could be in Portland, it could be in Aroostook
Yeah,
County,
yeah.
so.
Okay.
so on that same thing though, I know it's kind of like beating a dead horse, but so is Washington County splitting some of those?
They're paying for their own, the prosecutors down there. There's 2 prosecutors down there, so they're paying for 2 of those prosecutors down there to go to the,
They don't pay for the DA portion of it. It's just me.
they will pay half of Bob's.
They have some costs.
They're paying 100% top down there.
He's considered Washington County.
Yeah, I already talked to the administrator down there to make sure. I mean, we also have our victim witness advocates, they need training as well. That's in Augusta.
Wow, sorry.
The
If
convoluted
there's a-
calculations
Yeah, if
between
there's,
Hancock
if
and
there's a
Washington
split,
County.
which is what we can't figure out.
Sometimes wish they'd been successful. Split the counties up. But
Well, so it's not. Bill, what I think your point is, it's not so much the travel in miles. It's the vehicle expenses are all on us. Was that your original point?
Well, yeah, I mean, I would have thought, considering how dramatic it was to buy a vehicle, that there have been substantial changes in this ratio of who pays what, for what the county, it's all, so that maybe have to be fleshed out after years worth of budget. I'm not gonna pursue it today.
Now, one thing I don't see here, that 2450 that's in that vehicle line.
Yeah.
That is basically.
That
a
is,
res- No, wait a second, we should be looking at a reserve.
so that, no, Monica and I, we split that out. Monica contacted me, we split that out. Are you looking at 20005?
Yeah, but I really should be looking at 7,300, because that's what would buy, that amount is what would be buying the vehicle.
Oh, right, yes. Okay,
Yeah.
yes.
So Bill's got a valid point here, that that's the amount, that's really the amount that we should be talking about, right? Because they should be helping buy the vehicle.
Oh, are you in the reserves where, I'm trying to stay ahead of you. Okay,
7,300.
Yeah. I went to the reserve.
Okay.
Because that's what's buying the vehicle.
okay,
That's an expense line, this
Future vehicle.
yeah.
So the issue with that is this, there's no way you're gonna be able to force another county to pay for it. You know, if Hancock wants to provide it, then Hancock pays for it. The question is how do they handle the DA's knowledge after that? I mean, you can certainly make the request, but if the shoe was on the other foot, I'd be saying the same thing. I'd be like, well, why, you know, without that discussion and without an agreement in advance before we purchase the vehicle, why would you
Why would you buy
an
the vehicle?
expense? I'd be like, thanks.
Yeah, that's right, that's
You know.
true.
So. But, I mean, that's gonna be a little bit more than the administrator, because I communicate what you relay, and she hasn't communicated back to me anything, so. You know, at some point, that would be a discussion where the two commissions maybe get together. Figure out what exactly you want to do.
Do I have this wrong? Is Washington County is definitely benefiting from that vehicle, right?
Arguably, yes.
I mean, I guess that's a DA
I mean,
question.
assuming the DA drives and then there and for business and everything else, and why wouldn't they be benefiting from?
I don't know if there's any difference though, because the only difference is how the expense is being paid. So, in other words, before that vehicle was purchased, and whatnot, Bob would go to Washington County for a case, charge mileage, and they would pay 50% of it, correct?
And it should have been, for a Washington County case, it should be paying 100%.
Is that what they did, pay 100%?
They've only been paying 50%.
Pardon?
They've only been paying 50%, which I take issue.
Because it's a Washington County case, they should be paying the full amount.
Correct. I mean, because if Top Hawthorne comes down here from Machias, because he has a 400 caseload down here, Hancock County pays him 100%.
But they only pay 50 when you go down there.
Correct.
You guys need to sit down, we need to sit down, maybe have a chat.
I'd love to sit down. I appeared before the commissioners 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, up in Washington County. We went through this whole issue and we got no, I thought that we were gonna start paying 100%, but we just reimbursed 50%. But I think it's been thrown back on the two administrators. But it's,
Okay, well, I think, just so we get along today, I think this is gonna be an agenda item at some point later.
Yeah, it's gotta be equitable. You brought this issue last year, also.
the other argument there, they got 2 courts we have to attend up there, and you only have 1 here, so there's more travel involved in Washington County for my folks. But it really needs to be addressed. They should be reimbursed 100% for when I'm going up there from Washington County Maine. If I, for instance, go to Augusta, it gets split 50-50 because I'm going for the district.
That's right. That makes sense.
And so with the vehicle now, you're keeping track of mileage times that rate.
What Washington County is supposed to reimburse, I think 67.5
Yeah.
per mile.
That's how-
And we submit that, that's billing submitted, but the checks we've been getting will only be 50%.
But if you're not dealing to Augusta for a mutual issue, that would be 50%. If you went down there for the field, with the AG's office, on the Washington County case, that would be theirs, right?
Should be.
It's just,
That's what Mr. Granger said.
all right,
So is it a billing? I mean,
It's not a billing
It's
issue,
not a
because we
bill.
submit the 100% bill.
Oh.
it's a philosophy issue.
And they were notified what your policy was when this was taken up, so they know what you've indicated you're gonna charge. That message was communicated to the administrator. And the best I can do is short of going down and talking, which I'm willing to do, but I'm not gonna do that without your blessing, so.
Washington County's back on the position that they want their own DA. So they're gonna try and submit legislation again that have their own DA.
Yeah, they get it.
probably you do too. So, they submit, so that still leaves us, we're paying. I think Mr. Granger is making the argument that we're paying half the bill.
There are cases where they should be paying 100% of it, they don't. But this is a discussion, I think, for another day on another agenda. Is there or should there be, well, you said that whatever revenue that we do get comes in on miscellaneous,
That's correct, yes.
so that is covered for the time being.
Well, my guess is that you're saying that when you submit that, you're only paying half. That half now is coming in under that miscellaneous line? And it's only $1,000 a year?
Because we just started too with this vehicle, so.
No, but we already
You're
have mileage.
projected for 12 months next year at $1,000. I think that's my point, right?
Yeah.
I'm just curious as to how if $1,000 would cover it, but if you end up getting 5,000 and budgeted 1,000, good for you. It's better than budgeted 5 and only get 1,000. And they may need a year to find out, a lot of discussion before they find out what's really gonna happen, so. I think we ought to move on.
But as it is now, that's not coming in and just lowering that expense. That's actually coming in on the revenue line.
Yes.
Okay.
We want to address all the big elephant in the room with the pay.
Well,
My feeling is that we should be deciding that once we get the budget back on BAC, we see what the whole budget looks like, see what we're comfortable with, what the increase is going to be, and,
well, here's my, I don't have all those notes in front of me, but they differed from department to department. And the arguments were slightly different from department to department. But all of them had the common theme of consistency, what you do for non-union, or for, excuse me, what you do for union, you should be doing for non-union. that was the,
If there's no consistency with union, you have a law enforcement contract with a 6% increase, you have a jail contract with a 4% increase. So there's not even within the union contracts, there's no consistency.
that's one point. But, I mean, the elephant in the room is the same elephant in every department. And I think, I don't know, seems like we need to solve some of that today. Because if it goes to the BAC is gonna see all these different philosophies. And I think we're gonna have a bigger mess.
No, yes, we're gonna have their opinion back to us. At that point, we can either take their opinion or we can discard their opinion and come up with our own. It's the same thing we do every year.
Yeah. that's
We had
true.
to do that last year. They increased their budget, not decreased it, so.
Yeah.
You can either take time today, right now, and decide what that's going to be, and that will be definitely cast in stone. Or you can wait till after the BOC sends that budget back to us. We have an idea of what that looks like for increases and so on, and decide what we can feel is reasonable.
Well, and then that has a lot of merit, because then each department will have argued in front of the BAC. The BAC will sort of see the inconsistency between departments that we're seeing and weigh in on it. And then we can go from there. I think that's your point.
My history of what the BAC is gonna do
I know,
is they're gonna be doing some fiddle playing about and giving the departments most everything they want, plus some in some cases. And that's gonna come back to us, and then we'll just be the bad guys and kind of the stuff.
last year we sent them an 18% increase, they sent it back to us 23. So, what they suggest, Paul, doesn't hold a lot of weight with me, I guess. When it's all said and done, we still have to do what's right with the budget before we decide.
Okay, so what your plan is, sounds like a good one to me so far, is go in with the 3.2 that we put in.
We keep telling the department, they're gonna keep remembering, that's not a fixed number. That's the problem with giving a number on day one, it becomes cast in stone, but we keep telling them that's not the number, that's only
Number we're sending.
well, it's a number that was based upon, what was it based on?
Cost of living.
Cost of living, wherever that came from. Anyways, that's all that is. It represents what the federal cost of living amount is. And,
For this region.
whatever, wherever it came from, whatever.
That's where it came from.
And before we approve a final budget, we need to address this sincerely with everybody's comments.
So at what point will you set the health insurance rates for employees? Contributions?
So we just budget, basically.
I mean, that doesn't get done until late November, maybe early December.
Because you don't have the number.
I mean, you could decide on whatever you want the employee contribution to be on your portion. Literally anytime, really. But in terms of the unions, we'll know those, the jails, we won't know because we haven't negotiated that.
You're talking about employee contribution.
That's correct. 3.2% and you increase it, then there goes their wage increase, their COLA increases.
So, right now, do we have anything plugged in for what's?
We would have just plugged in the health basically like we normally do, which is whatever the rates are and then the percentage and then buyouts on top of that.
What do you base your percentage on?
Did you plug in any additional for employee contribution?
Employee contribution, no, we didn't put anything in, correct, Monica? Nothing that we would.
It's the same
The
number as last year.
normal bill.
Same,
For the employee side, yes. The
Current.
current rates.
what's employee pay.
Right.
Which is a good discussion at the time we decide what that increase in rates is going to be. We'll have to set that in the same time. We've got to remember, not the VAC, that contribution rate hasn't been affected by the 2,500 yet.
They'll last.
Should we take a stab at that?
I could take a stab at it, I don't say zero, but that wouldn't be
Yeah.
the stab you want. I know we had talked about a plan trying to work for media benefits, but that hasn't happened as of yet, so. I mean, it really is probably going to likely be one more year, the commission is trying to determine what that's going to be. Before we can get any type of plan for parity, I guess, for lack of a.
Are we talking about contribution, or are we talking about the cost of health?
Employee contribution, not, I mean, the cost of health, the actual healthcare itself, we have no control over. obviously.
Right.
Because
Why is the Canadian benefits, why are they getting involved in the employee contributions?
you had asked us to try to go back and
Keep up.
clean it all up.
Yeah.
To get it so that we could come up with a way so that one group over another isn't necessarily taken uneven, unbalanced.
Because what was happening is the county was, the contribution stayed the same, the cost went up.
And then there was discussion about the higher incomer versus the lower incomers, so on and so forth. So that was something initially you talked about at the end of last year, or very beginning of this year, I think it was. And then obviously with all this transition, that's stalled, so.
The parity is never going to be established for at least 2 more years, because we've had
Yeah,
one contract that we failed to increase for 3 years. So there's 2 more years on it.
and even to cycle it through, depending on the timing, yeah, you're at 2 to 3 years anyway, depending on whenever that decision's made.
I still think that setting that employee contribution rate is something we do at the time we're talking about the increases. that we had. Good time to talk about.
Well, and we'll have a better idea of what the cost, what I mean, to me, the employee contribute, as the cost goes up, our cost goes up, the employee contribution has to go up.
That's what I'm saying. At that time, we can decide how much. And then weigh that against what we're given for increase in wages.
Yeah.
3.2 is not gonna cut it.
Well,
How many times have I got to tell you?
I'm just saying, 3.2 is not gonna cut it.
well, if you look, I mean,
Oh, no,
This is-
don't do it.
it's the elephant in the room. I mean, I keep hearing from communities saying, when's it end? They're facing the same thing, it's, I gotta tell you, it's not what the real world is.
Okay, I think I'm done with the, all right, if you give me. All right. Commissioners.
You had a lot of comments last time.
Tell me again, reserve transfers.
That's what we budgeted in case we need to, if there is an actual transfer from that one to another. We rarely have to do that, I think, but it's kind of a placeholder that's, yeah, in case we need to do.
And why do we do that in our budget? We don't do it in everybody else's.
You're at the top. But yours is more general government, so I mean, there's probably a variety of things that come into play there, but in terms of the revenue itself, it's tied more to the overall general fund, not necessarily specific department, things like the budget goes in there in terms of their actual requests, and you save them as part of the budget process, and you can raise it as part of the budget process, and then it's transferred at the end of the year. And if that comes back out, it's essentially a wash, correct? So it's more focused on part of the budget cost. So I mean, it's not technically in there, but it's part of the raising, it's part of the reserve, it's part of what goes into that.
Hypothetically, though, we had a $500,000 budget and a $10,000 reserve transfer. And we hit that 500,000 right on the nose. We're actually 10,000 over budget because we didn't have the revenue to support it.
Well, or. I mean, you'd have, just in that case, we wouldn't have budgeted, because you're saying, like, in this case, we've got 4,000. The scenario, if I understood what you're saying correctly, then in that case, you're talking about having 10,000, so we actually would have been ahead of the game.
No, I use 10, I just try to use even numbers. Nevertheless, whatever we have in the reserve transfers that we don't use, we're gonna use it if we were $4,000 over our expenditures, right?
Yeah.
If we're not 4,000 over, then we don't use it.
Well, and in most cases, we don't see that yet. I mean, it really is.
But the budget called for 4,000 in revenue, and it didn't get.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I mean, I put it to zero and you just, the chips lay where they are, because if you look at historically, we don't see any activity there anyway.
And the point is that if another department overran the budget, we find revenues, we find
Yeah, ultimately, you have to figure.
money somewhere to make it up. But with
Within the
us,
department.
so why, if we were to use the same source of money to,
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, yeah, I mean, this is a historical carryover from prior budgets, so.
you understand what the issue is, guys? Well, it's 4,000 is in there in case we run our budget over by 4,000. He'll take 4,000 out of our reserve account and balance the budget. Now, we're the only department that they do that. Everybody else, if they overrun their budget, they surplus, they unexpended balance, and that's how they balance out the accounts. The point is that why do we do it one way for our budget and differently for everybody else? Why don't we do it all the same way with ours, with everything?
It'd be a lot easier to do, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and like he said, historically, you're not, on the commissioner's side, you're not running over budget, so it almost seems a non-issue. We can bring that to zero.
I think we should.
Yeah.
I think we should bring it to zero. We have the kind of budget we can keep stable. I suppose we got hit with a $1 billion lawsuit because we didn't budget for.
Why?
Plus, there is a.
Do
I said, why are you jinxing us right now?
Oh, yeah. Bring it over, I guess.
There is a G account in the notes that's associated with that as well. It's that G1301106, which does have,
Yeah.
And
right,
that's where you're taking the 4,000 from,
or adding to,
if there's a balance.
right.
So we're gonna remove that. That's general, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I forget, we had that increase in the advertising because the advertising's handled by
Because
HR.
essentially,
and
HR is
right?
handling that, and they're doing it for all the departments now.
So I don't really want to look through here, but so if we go through the other departments, are we gonna see their advertising?
The way I understand it, no, we've been picking up that cost really in the last year or so. And some of that's the new methods that had been used, like, you know, the other online advertising, things like that. But right now, that was the question that I confirmed before she left and what, and looking at the budgets and all that. I mean, that's basically what happens. The bill gets put back to HR and HR has been paying for everybody's advertising.
So
But my question is there an advertising
increase
line
in
in all
everybody
these
else's?
areas? It's being funded.
From what I understand, no.
No?
No,
So
it's
shouldn't
not,
we be looking,
it's not hitting it.
shouldn't we be decreasing everybody else's advertising budget?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Well, but their advertising isn't tied to just positions, employee positions, so they have some other advertising, like the sheriff's advertising cruisers, things like that, so I mean, it depends on what they're advertising.
You just remember to ask if they're advertising for positions.
I mean, in the perfect world, I'd say to you, why wouldn't you just charge back these departments? But it's not built in like that this year.
Well, and it's 2005.
And as we keep going, I mean,
It's just from one caucus to the other.
The other thing though is that I like it because just 3 or 4 years ago, we couldn't get private into work with each other. And this almost incites them to work with us because they don't pay the advertising.
well, in my position for next year, if you have a candy by then, it's basically to try to trade in the department, just HR. What I'm gonna try to put together a proposal for next year, because this does kind of make the commissioners look a little inflated in administration. Now, arguably, HR is kind of an administration thing, so, I mean, that's where it makes sense, but it could definitely be arguments made for why it would be better to break that down, so you can see all these costs and understand what programs that HR are providing and all those things, how they impact you. But so just a question about the 3.2%. No, but in all seriousness, we didn't really confirm. We're leaving that number in there for, that we put in for you today for all these until you tell us otherwise.
Well, see, that's what we sort of decided. We have to do something, it's just when and.
Just
with
not
what-
at this point.
When and with whose input. This would be easier if all the departments, you know, if it was the same in all departments, but even then, you know, I just don't know how to go about this. I know that, you know, when we did the union stuff, we had some, you know, we had some comparables and we had something to compare to. Here, we don't have anything to compare to.
I mean, I provided you with what, you know, the Maine county clerks, administrators, what they've come up with. That's not nearly comprehensive, and it's, I mean, they're looking at doing a more formal study, but I think the latest figure they got was like $18,000, which is beyond what they're probably gonna pay for too, which would include everything, not just administrators and commissioners, and even full breakdown like MMA does with municipality. I think what I gave you before, I mean, that was only 9 of the 16 counties, I think.
And I don't have that in front of me. It didn't appear to me, from recollection, that we were that far off.
Not necessarily, no. I mean, and there's regional factors you could obviously try to take that and figure in as well.
Yeah. Which that didn't.
I think that was the problem, because we didn't, it wasn't all 16 counties, we should be about midway, I think, based upon everything from, you know, budget size, your county size, your evaluation and so on. And so, when you're looking at the top pay and the low pay, we should be.
Well, in the top third, somewhere between midway and top.
That's what I want this to. So in keeping with the other conversation on 900 reserve transfers, we zero that out as well.
Under revenues, is that what you're talking about? Or-
No, I'm not, wait a minute, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry, this, they don't take the old sheets out, you don't know where you want the new sheet.
Put the big X on it.
No, I'm fine, never mind. Okay. Anything else? Okay.
Next thing is
Treasure.
The adjustment I made was the adjustment to the treasurer.
Expenditures?
Yeah.
Revenue is the same as before.
Mhm.
Let's hash that over.
Yeah, the interest income could go either way, as we discussed at the last commissioners meeting.
Okay, so actual is 273 going to 150.
Actual's 273 right now
Yeah.
through the end of September, through the end of August. It's 150 because cash is going down.
Cash is going down and the interest rates are. I think we're looking at,
Slight drop in interest rates.
I think it's gonna be more than slight. The middle of next year.
So if you think even 150 is high,
The payroll services increases because we have the new contract, right?
yes.
Just building it up for,
And we zeroed the time tracker services
Yeah.
because the payroll.
Yeah.
The new payroll system includes time tracking.
and our, the copier maintenance being so much more, is it just because we have like a new contract with the new copiers and it's just not as advantageous or what?
Just trying to be,
It's not really a reserve, you're not building like a reserve
This is-
for,
this is just for maintenance, the contract where the copies and
it's just a more expensive contract for.
the ink and all that, the supplies, yeah.
So we pay so much a copy.
We've got a brand new copiers and it costs a lot more to run them.
Michelle's, again, it kind of takes a little time. The contract didn't change any, it's just the copiers
Gotcha. I was just curious.
changed.
It's just like,
We
it would have been nice to see less there after you get every room in the
Why
building
did-
has a
why
new
did it
copier
go
right
up?
now, so.
If it's the same contract, why did it go up?
So some of that is because of usage, correct?
Usage and we kept one of the copiers.
So did
Possibly.
we add a copy of?
We basically are adding a copier because we kept one of the old copier that was in the finance department and we're gonna,
Let's have what that
yeah,
looks like.
that's gonna go away.
Okay, just curious. Sounds
Make me an offer, John.
Well, I mean, be picky on 1,500, it's just that I just didn't see 15, I didn't see a doubling in cost.
Yeah,
Well,
well,
we also have the actual of 2436. So even though we budgeted 1,500, we're over by 1,000.
Yeah.
So in that technically, that copier is the one that pretty much we all use. So
Right.
that's
But we,
any increase with the human resources now, with all those additional copies would have been made, notices going out on employees. You know,
we
new
just got new copies.
will all be.
We haven't had a, we had old copies all year, we just got new ones.
Oh, and you're saying it
Well,
might not be
I'm with-
reflective of
I'm with
that.
John, I said, why spend all this money for new copies, that double the cost of operating?
it's, for me, it's honestly a shot in the dark. I can
Well,
cut that back if you want me to.
Why is the year to date bill for first 9 months? Almost 2,500, 24.
Like you said, it's just from use, ink,
so,
supplies, HR,
Would that have gone down?
Banyan.
Yeah, would that have gone down with new copies?
not necessarily, no.
Ink cartridges, prices have gone up. Several toner cartridges.
we should leave it as it is. and then
Okay.
Next year, if we look at it, we can see where we're at. Maybe it won't be quite as bad. At least that's what
I could maybe cut that back by 500. And I know there will also be a point where you might start looking at reserve accounts to cut those items if you need to, so
Well, that,
again, the $1,000 is a placeholder to start looking.
Thank you.
and everything. All right. All right, maintenance. We thought about plowing some of our neighbors, maybe.
Pick up a little revenue? Well, if we had a plow.
Get you out there. Tractors.
So, get on the truck, get on the truck.
It is, we have seen a savings from snow removal, like trucking it away, which we haven't done that for years now, because we have the tractor. So that is a windfall that we've experienced. Yeah, the expenses are going down. And that snow removal, that's, I'm assuming the jail's cost. Yeah, so that cost double.
This one, Monica, I don't think it shows the, when you look at the personnel line, I don't see it sitting at the 3.2 or whatever, right?
Under commissioners,
Yeah, once again,
Just making sure I'm
Yeah.
not like crazy.
you're not crazy, but the dollar amounts are reflected within
It's
So
the
the
notes, it's the notes, it's those last three columns. That are incorrect.
yeah, sorry,
But the 74,407, 3.2%
yes,
increase.
yes.
Has somebody done a spreadsheet? Of, you know, like. Here, that was, this department was 7%. DA was different. Is there a spreadsheet somewhere to?
And again, make a note, just so we can get a snapshot of what each
Each department was
line
asking.
happens, so
There
we
is
kind of know
not,
what
but I
everybody's.
can,
Yeah, or if there is, or if we just knew what each.
Technically, if the department, if those columns are correct in the department request, then you could almost see that from. But they're still a little wishy-washy, but.
well, the dollar amounts are correct, it's just that percentage column in it.
No, but I meant in terms of the original department request, where we plugged in with the notes and everything, we give you what they asked for anyway. But, so you at least would see it, so you can literally go down through right
But
now.
you have to go into each department to get there.
Yeah.
He's looking for a request.
Yeah, what would be nice is if we just saw each department,
Right on
three,
one
that
sheet.
column that says 3.2 and then what they asked. And then that might help
It's
us,
just simplify, just try to flip so much.
yeah.
I forget, so. Okay, says on the part-time increase. It says it's because of wage increases and staffing levels. Make it necessary, so with this number. Is it 1,000 more because we're paying them more?
yeah, and because, we've been over on that line, I see that.
Okay.
The budget average is 8,600, but we had established a different method of like planned part-time versus call-in part-time with two different budgets. But when we create a new position, we removed one of those. And so I try to nudge a little more realistic figure into that single part-time.
So like right now, our actuals though are only 3,390, right?
Right, well, because we couldn't find any help.
Because he hasn't hired anybody.
Yeah, because we had no help, that's why.
Wow. Okay.
We do now, yes.
You have that. Okay.
Well, actually, that's the same as last year, right?
Same as his original ask last year.
Oh, and the budget was 65.
Right, I had requested 75.
Yeah, and the budget went to 65.
So everybody does that, but I'm up on vehicle insurance. This school is expected to an increase, how come it wasn't 480?
Might be last year's note.
We had,
We're just now working on the new numbers with the risk pool, so
we had those.
no, we're just
I
starting.
mean, do you have those? Have they given us the numbers?
No,
Did the renewal a couple of months ago, a month and a half ago, and they finally acknowledged it this past weekend that they received it.
But they have.
but I'm guessing.
Have no
we
have
have-
told us.
should be another.
Why did we go down? There's no reason to believe it's going down. Why did you go? I mean, it's only $80, right? Just curious. Anything, I should have gone up to 600. I'm almost shocked the departments only have 15.4% of all jail expenses that have moved over into the department.
For sure.
That's because they artificially lowered the insurance. By $80. Thanks. Most of it, it is what it is, right? Yes,
Yeah, a lot of fixed costs in there that we have control.
we don't-
And as always, when, we won't get the standard offer rates for electricity for November. And then we'll have a better idea what we're looking at and if, like, for instance, this year, that line's way over. But that leads me to be conservative in other lines. My goal is always to make sure that the bottom line is in the black here. And the only, and that used to be, there was an incentive because it would be tied to my reserve account contributions, but now that seems to be something that on a pretty arbitrary basis, so.
Okay. What's it do? All right, RCC.
So you want me to increase that vehicle insurance on? Sounded like,
How about the $80?
more to like 600 or 80.
Well, you've increased it 80, right?
No,
It
we decreased it.
basically kept it back to the levels before.
Oh, we decreased it.
Interesting.
We increased it from 480 in 2024 to 400.
Yeah,
That's just, again, it's just a number that was put in, but Bill mentioned whether you want to increase it another 20% over last year.
I do think the 20% is no left over from last year.
I think it is, but I wouldn't be surprised if we probably had another 20% increase for this year, so.
We'll
Build in the experiential factor of having a few accidents this year, I'm assuming our percentage is gonna go up as well.
we have time enough, given the fact that you're waiting for the.
Yeah, I mean, we usually hear sometime next month, maybe, or beginning of conversion. I mean, I can certainly call Malcolm and try to get a feel from him, but I think it's still premature at this point as well.
The
But
change, you're expecting something that's going to get something.
I would hope so before we finish, yeah. Before we finish.
so.
Just leave it.
Leave it there.
You're still doing the midnights for APD.
11 PM, what's up there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Trying to remember the name of the program, the one that we're doing is, when different fire departments get the tax.
Oh, I am responding.
Yeah, so I forget, when we did that, what was our contract?
We did for 5 years. And I asked them for, we talked about that for Harper again, I've asked them for potentially a price to extend it out 5 years, not 5 more years, but from today,
Yeah.
5 years, and they're still working on. I just keep kicking them for some reason, like, hey, we want to spend some money, give us numbers, but that's not included.
It hasn't included the budget,
So,
so,
no, we paid for that.
Yeah.
We-
so what do you envision, like, let's say, we can't extend it?
I think it's gonna be roughly $14,000 a year.
14,000?
Because it was 70+ thousand for the 5 year for all the departments. We've added a couple, which is $800 per department. And that would be, I mean, we still have 2.5, 3 years on our contract, so we have to think about that later. But like I said, I have solicited them to give me a price so we can extend it out 5 years, not beyond, but a couple years, just to get it out. I don't want to go too far in case our product comes up. I mean, we would get it back, but we have really factor in the budget, so we.
At a certain point, you will. right?
Yeah.
Which is essentially transferring that cost onto the taxpayers. Because it's a service to-
Because we do that for departments that we don't service dispatch.
So should, that begs the question, should we be building a reserve? No, because that's gonna be a yearly cost. That's really-
That would be yearly, and it's fairly fixed. They haven't done a price increase since they started that program. And that's kind of we would know pretty much, a couple years out, that that's what it would be.
All right.
But like I said, I'm still waiting on. Go back.
Obviously, keep on it.
Yeah.
See if we can.
Yeah, and I figured, do a couple of year extension, just so it's 5 years from the last point, so we're not out there too far.
You create your reserve account mainly for if you need to get a new console.
One console or some, needed a radio repeater or something like that we have. I mean, we use a fair amount of it. We had at one point, 100,000, we used 50,000 of that for renovation. Might be available there. We can do it again. And maybe
And
a
right
few
now,
years.
we've replaced all the consoles.
No, we bought, well, we console is kind of a general term, the dispatch furniture, we only bought one new one, and they basically tore the old stuff down. and put it back together. But those 3 dispatch consoles that we originally had, that had been since 2010. So at some point, those will probably need to be overhauled or repaired.
And that would be paid out of this.
That's my vision, if we had to do that. If we had one that just crapped out, we have money there that we could go, not rely on our funding, because it probably will, if it's gonna break, it's gonna break February. When we don't have money. I don't anticipate anything breaking, but that gives us a buy something if we need to repair things.
Good job.
I think it's it. Shit. Hey.
Do you have any questions I can answer for you?
So anytime we see an increase in revenues, do any pay legal fees for what? Is this legal services for your clients or something?
Yes, the Maine statute requires that if an individual meets the specific criteria,
and financial criteria, then they are eligible for the MCILS court-appointed attorney, which is the rate that the state of Maine sets. And so we have a budget for that. However, sometimes with legal cases, they go longer and are more complicated than they appear initially. So we're working on a system to manage that better.
We've spent 18 so far this year, you're only asking for 17.5 for the whole year next year. Do you think this has been about normal, or should we?
Every year I have surpassed the budget, and I've just been mindful during the budget season. I'm trying to capture what I think we're gonna need, but it does seem to be a need that's increasing, and I suspect that trend will continue.
You're covering that over somewhere else.
23 actuals were only 15,596.
But if you look
But
at her,
it's over the budget.
yeah. If you look at her, like her averages, they're 16.8, they're kind of close to that 17.5.
One thing that I'm working on to sort of recoup is currently when we have transfers from other counties, the money doesn't always transfer. So that's something I'm going to be following up on and making sure that that county pays for the legal fees for the file that we are handling for whether it's jurisdictional reasons or conflict reasons.
Anything far?
Yeah, thank you.
I'm not done, actually.
Oh, you're not?
No, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to ask me questions.
Yeah, we're all done that. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I took some time to look at my department in relation to other departments in the department head and assistant salary categories. And while I'm not making a motion to change anything that I presented to you, I do want to say that my data suggests quite a bit of pay disparity within the county. And so I wanted to just bring that to your attention. I'm the lowest paid department head, lowest paid elected official department head. And the difference between my salary and the salary of my deputy is less than 1%. And she will, by the next budget season, surpass me with the COLA and steps. I've never been comfortable with writing a blank check. I don't want to set my salary, so to speak, but I wouldn't be advocating for myself or the department if I didn't bring it up to your attention. And I can forward my data to you separately. And I don't, it's just something for information.
When we get the budget back,
Mhm.
BAC, then we can have this global discussion about everybody, department heads, non-union employees, wage, put all your notes together, be ready to come back when you see comments to us then.
Great,
But I have a question on that.
absolutely.
You said you did research among other departments. Did you do, have you looked at other counties? Because that's
That's
information that we
the-
don't,
That's another tier that I haven't gotten to, but I was going to.
that
I
would be
just
really helpful.
It is, and other counties were talking about it, we're just trying to get it all in one place. So I know the registers are working on that, so I can certainly,
Well, excuse me, did we get that information on the 9 counties that we know? A salary
For
survey
each one.
for
Yeah, but
probate?
probably not the detailed level of what
What she's talking about. Yeah, we did,
it didn't really even occur to me until last week or this week when I was looking at how it looks. Like the way I do my budget and the way I enter my numbers, it's not necessarily the way it looks when you guys get it. So as I was reviewing everything and reviewing other departments' budgets, I took a few minutes to collect some data, and I was very surprised from what I learned.
So what, again, this may sound like a stupid question, but, so your deputy and they're subject to a scale, and you're not, so
No.
that eventually, so that's one of the problems that
Yes.
we.
And I think it's sort of a historical problem, one that it was an issue when I came in, and it's really taken a couple cycles with the budget and learning how to do the budget and things like that to get an idea of what was going on. And then just historically, probate has not been, the loudest department, at the pig trough. So, I don't know.
Keep those comments close, bring it back, okay?
Well,
Okay.
thank you so much for being open to hearing my data, and I will get that prepared for you. Hello.
I mean, you kind of hinted at something big was gonna happen with revenues.
Yeah, we do have, someone that's sponsoring our bill for the fee increase. And it should, and it should hit soon, like right at the beginning of the year. It should be one of the first things, and it has a lot of support, so it should pass.
Even still, it won't be emergency, so it would be September before it goes into effect.
July maybe.
What's,
What's it gonna do?
yeah, like just a step.
Double,
Oh, really?
double what our annual is.
Double the,
Yeah,
all of them?
no, the line that says fees.
430,000.
Yeah. Double that.
So it's 98 out of the legislature.
Wow.
So it's technically by before July, it's supposed to be done. In September, so the 90-day bills.
Still had an impact though, because it'll hit the people that buy in the summer. Because they look in the summer and it closes in the fall, so.
Let's hope. Huh?
Yeah.
We should.
So is that built in there right now, or that isn't built in
It's
there?
legit, no, it's not.
Yeah, no, that's what I thought. All right, I just wanted to make sure.
I can do a budget better than that.
Yeah, none of that's in here.
No. Nope.
Now, your copy fees have gone way down.
Well, that's because people are cheap and they can save them and not have to print them, so they don't have a copy, they don't have paper, they don't have to. So most of the people doing title searches really aren't printing. So, yeah, that's a very real number.
There's no charge for the electronic. Yeah.
There is, but, if we send it to them, they can save it, it doesn't cost them anything, but it has a lot of. So. Well, well, that's how it works.
So that's okay.
She don't want to ask about me, she's on that, we don't have to talk. I'll be the loud department. I always talk about it. It's so different. Don't laugh, Joe. And where Juliet is right now, I was there when I started too, so I know how she feels. She's gonna have her deputy make more money than she does.
And she's gonna have to come in if nobody comes to work. You have to be there if nobody comes to work or if they're sick. So I know what she's saying right now.
You all set? Yeah. Thank you.
You don't wanna talk money?
Yeah, we want to talk about revenue. You good?
Yeah, geez, we're important to you when it comes to the money, but not when it comes to paying up. Yes, I don't know.
Today,
Oh, bat committee, it'll come up at the bat committee. Be unified.
so we have less alarms getting paid for this.
Yeah, a lot of the alarm companies now are calling prior to us actually responding and canceling them for the homeowners or whatnot, so we're taking alarm calls and we may be en route, but we don't actually charge unless we actually land at that residence, so oftentimes we're getting canceled while we're in. The other aspect of that too is I believe we charge them after the first one, so we may respond to an alarm the first time at a property, we don't necessarily charge them for that first response.
Remind me why the training and registrations went up so much.
Yeah, so the reason for the training registrations is the cost of registrations that we just got a notice from the academy. I believe it was like maybe Wednesday or Thursday last week. They raised their cost for trainings, their hourly cost. A lot of the trainings that we do go to as well have increased their costs over the last year or so.
Safety, is that ammo?
So the public safety would be ammunition, it would be, things such as like pepper spray, different items that we use, whether, sometimes our handcuffs break,
But
things like
is
that.
it really like we're gonna have 41%?
What was that?
Is that really a 41% increase?
$4,000 or $5,000.
Yeah,
$5,000, yeah, so year to date right now, as you can see, we're at the 11,000.
Yeah,
100, we still haven't made a couple significant purchases that would impact that, such as some ammunition towards the end of the year to keep up on stock as we go through the qualifications and things such as that to meet the yearly demands there. So I do anticipate that we will be over that $12,000 mark, where we're only $900 short now, and the ammunition costs will probably be somewhere around $2,000 or so alone.
and was that the one explained last time as you needed for the non-lethal cannon, is that
Yep. So that will also come out as well.
in that line, right?
It will, yes, and those alone, those ammunitions are approximately $35 a round. There's, I believe, 3 to qualify per person, so there is a fairly substantial expense that goes to that as well.
But that was the explanation for that extra.
Yes, that's part of it.
It's a launcher, not a can.
Well, terminology means everything.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's fine.
Back in the days of riot gear,
I haven't said.
I'm trying to forget.
We had shotgun rounds, so just keep it to myself.
Do what?
So we had shotgun rounds. I was in love with it. Back up.
But yes, that's one of the new expenses that we didn't previously have, was just the launchers as well.
We still have the breakdown, computer costs, remember that sheet, that data sheet?
Yep, so we looked in our records, we don't have, what we were able to come up with is what we have paid out of that account this year for Trio, which would, should show those contractual services, at least what they were this year, so I can certainly forward that up too. As far as like a breakdown of what those contractual costs are going to be, in 2025, the best, indication I would have is the Trio invoices that we've paid out so far this year.
When you prepared your budget, you must have anticipated increases to certain contracts or something.
So when we look at that for the contractual services, we looked at that we had, to date spent the 84,163 under computer support, which is why we put the 85 in there. It looks like, which is, well, that's exactly what, that's the explanation.
How's the sheriff office trying to recruit new officers? I'm just curious, like today, like at some point last day or two, I heard, and I don't even remember if it was for another sheriff department or whatever, but I heard them go into, all the benefits and whatever thing. So how are we trying to actively do that? So we don't have to have this big old buyout section here where we can start getting some people.
Yeah, so, actually I had an individual from Serena reach out yesterday. He's not a green, he doesn't have any experience. But a couple of things that we do is when we advertise a position, obviously it's advertised, HR was doing it through Indeed. We do advertise, on our Facebook as well, so social media. A couple other avenues that we will do is we do take, high school individuals on ride-alongs, anybody that's interested or has, interest peaked there. We have, had individuals, help to instruct at like Eastern Maine Community College, where they have their criminal justice program, to try to get individuals interested that way. We have, received, or Deputy Medina is an individual that at one time was at Eastern Maine Community College. I instructed them there. So we have seen some return. There's a couple individuals that have been employed at the jail that came from Eastern Maine Community College. So those are a few different avenues that we've explored as far as trying to solicit some interest.
I participated in a career day as well last fall, up at Hudson. That was specifically for law enforcement. I believe we did, yeah.
Well, while we're talking about recruiting, you're aware that there are 2 additional deputies in this count, in this proposed budget.
There is, yes. We had obviously discussed that last budget season. Cut at the end of the budget, we'll come back, did that obviously, but then we came to the trouble of finding the funds to pay for those positions a few months back. So we have asked for those positions again in the budget.
I'd like to discuss those because the lieutenant has assured us, state police has assured us that he's going to cover one of the 3 slots in 2025. So the county is left with 2 of the slots that's left. That means, given the fact that there are each shift, there's a section working, and a section that involves 1 sergeant and at least 2 deputies, if not 3, but given the fact that it's at least 2, one of each of the deputies assigned to both slots, on each slot, and then the sergeant can bounce back and forth between the 2 and assist with his calls, which, if you take the number of calls for 23, 7,834, and you divide your annual workdays of each deputy into the average number of calls for that deputy, you get 2 1/3 calls a day. Now, of course, that's an average. So for every day the guy gets 5 calls, there's a day that doesn't get any by average. And so 2 1/3 calls for a 11-hour shift, is that what you're working now, 11?
The patrol works 11 hours.
11-hour shift for 2.5 calls is, in my opinion, it's not excessive, and it's manageable. If you look at the page 2 on there, you'll see that both of those calls, basically 60% of those calls and whatnot are calls that can be taken care of. They're not fatal car accidents, they're not burglary investigations, they're not long-term, sex abuse cases. You handle them, they're over with, you answer an alarm, most of which are false, it's over. And so, of the 2 1/3 calls taken each day, 60% of them are quick calls, if there's such a thing, but they're not highly involved. And one of the positions that's not mentioned here, but it's not in the section I was talking about, is the airport security deputies. And for 32 weeks a year, there's only 3 flights a day out of Trenton. And the airport security officer has to be there 30 minutes before each flight departs. So if you was at the office, for example, drove down 30 minutes before, drove back, I mean, that's an hour per flight. And considering that the airport security deputy is probably going to be working 12 hours this winter a day, there's 9 hours available every day he works to help handle complaints. And also, I guess there is a deputy that's getting done this fall sometime and leaving. And so there's a deputy that's got to be replaced. And if they get 2 more deputies, that's 3 deputies now that's got to be replaced. And given the history down there, whatnot, it seems like the only deputies available, are the only officers available, the ones we have to pay for. If we have to pay, worst case scenario, the 1 year out of the academy price for 3 people and whatnot, that's $140,000. Now, he doesn't have any money in the account and is asking for how much in buyouts, 50,000 in buyout, which will cover 1 deputy. And he's going to need to replace that deputy that's getting done. But what you really need to talk about, it isn't just the cost of those 2 deputies' salaries, benefits, health insurance, cruisers, equipment. I figured it up and whatnot, it's $388,000 just to hire 2 deputies. And first of all, I don't see the data that supports the sheriff's office needing more deputies. And regardless of the need, $388,000 to our budget is a significant increase, and I think that should be taken out.
Comments that I would offer in respect to that is the calls for service that Commissioner Cobb references. While some of them may be minimal, they still do require response, they do require a report to be typed and so forth. To say that there's no time spent on them at all would be inaccurate. not that you made that claim, but to illustrate that there still is time that is needed to handle those calls for service. The other thing I would say is that a lot, as times have changed, you know, even over the last 10 years, for example, we are asked and tasked to handle more in the respect of reporting. There are different state standards now that we have to do that we didn't have to do 5 years ago. So, you know, a simple traffic stop, for example, used to be that you stopped the car, you ran or did a license registration check, and sent them on their way. You have to do a demographic field and things like that by state mandates. That's an example that while it's not a huge task within itself, it adds a few extra minutes there, and all of these tasks add a little bit of extra time. Now, the I believe you said 2 and a third call a day or something to that effect. While that number may be true if you were to break it down that way, the other thing that I would say is that some of these calls for service, such as domestics or some car accidents or thefts or burglaries, those will take multiple days sometimes, or sometimes weeks, depending on that investigation. So there are time sucks, for lack of a better word, time that needs to be devoted to those things. So it is more outside of just looking at it purely from a 2.3 calls per day. The travel distance, that's another thing that I would bring up, is that Commissioner Clark is correct, where the state police covering 1/3. We've had that conversation with them. They have committed to covering 1/3 of the county. With that being said, the times that they are covering slot 2, for example, and we have 1 and 3, we're on opposite sides of the county, there is more travel time, generally speaking, to get to these calls for service. That eats into that time. So all these things in conjunction take up time, is what it boils down to. And if you look at the additional document that I provided along with those calls for service, you'd see that what we are predicting for 2024 would be the highest number of calls for service handled by a specific deputy since 2010. If you want to look at a hard number, look at 2023, where again, that was the highest number of calls for service handled by a specific deputy since 2010. So I would say that this demonstrates the need for those additional deputies. It's something that we asked for last year. We again talked about middle of the way this year, and that's why we're requesting it again. Lastly, the very last point I would make is the comment about the sergeant and the 2 deputies on each section. That, in a perfect world, to have a deputy covering each of our 2 slots and the sergeant to float in between to assist, that would be perfect. Ultimately, that's what I would love to strive for, but that's not the reality, because we do have other contractual obligations that I need to pull a deputy for, such as the Stonington contract, such as right now, we do have John Mahon at the airport. When John Mahon is not at the airport on his days off, again, out of those 3, I'm pulling somebody out of that section to go to the airport. So for example, if John Mahon is not working, I have 3 people working. 1 has to get assigned to the airport. The other 2 are each covering a zone or a slot. I don't have anybody that I can pull to send to Stonington. So there is days where that's certainly conflicting.
Yellow flag too is a time consuming with the new yellow flag law. If we have one of those cases, we have to work. That takes probably realistically the biggest part of the shift for the amount of hoops and steps you have to take to do that. And I don't think we want to get in a position like Saginaw County's in, et cetera, et cetera. So
That is one thing that is getting increasingly popular, for lack of better words. And the reason why that's so time consuming is because that requires that deputy to take them to the hospital to do the paperwork, to go back to the office. They have to type their report, they have to give a touch and spur wink, they have to then justice the piece or just sign off, take it back to the hospital. So oftentimes when we do have those instances of yellow flag laws, it does take a shift. That is just one of many things that we do handle that will take a shift or an extended period of time.
If we were to look historically at the number of officers we have, can you give me just like a rough idea? Like, 'cause for me, I mean, it's really hard to be like, because to me, it's like every year, we're asking for more officers, which you might need. I'm not saying you don't. But so like, to me, I'm just not quite sure if I can see the bigger picture, because then I also see, officers leave and we're trying to find officers. It's like in the end, it could be the exact same number we were 5 years ago, or we could have 15 more guys than we had
Yeah.
5 years ago. It's really hard for
So
somebody how he's not there.
to put that into perspective a little bit, just looking back at it, and I don't know if you have this form available, it's the one that I had sent out.
Yeah, I have it here, I'm trying to print it.
So I can give it to you if you want to make a copy of that, that'd be easier.
I think I can.
So to put that into perspective a little bit, I tried to put it to terms myself looking back, and the easiest way to look back is, for example, 2010 under when Commissioner Clark was sheriff, they had effectively 10 road people. That included lieutenants, detective, and deputies. They were handling an average of 474 calls for service per deputy. That didn't include the chief deputy or the sheriff. Effectively, people that would handle calls. You fast forward to go to 2015. The calls for service that year increased approximately 600 calls for service since 2010. And they had increased three deputies. That dropped the average to 412 calls for service per deputy. If you then go to 2019, the calls for service stayed roughly the same, but they increased the deputy's position to 14, which dropped the average down to 382 calls for service. And this is really where a pattern kind of formed, is in 2020. The calls for service since 2019 went up a little over 500. We'll say it's just about 700. And the calls, deputies added 2 positions. They hovered at 378 calls for service per deputy. 2021, we went up about 500 calls for service again, and in return, we were given another position. So we again stayed right at 387 calls for service per deputy. 2022, we stayed about the same for calls for service. We added a deputy that brought us down to 359 calls for service. That would be the lowest number of calls for service we've handled per deputy in at least recent times. Now, the big change came in 2022 when we went from the state police covering half of the county down to a third. And in that time, from 2022 to 2023, we stayed the same amount of deputies. Actually, we stayed the same amount budgeted, I should say, but we weren't full staff, so we had 1 deputy less. Our calls for service increased about 1,400 calls for service, and we handled 460 calls per deputy on average. So far this year to date in 2020, I anticipate we'll be right around 7,500 calls for service at year's end, with 16 deputies after losing the Tremont contract. And we will average 471 calls for service per deputy, which will be the highest increase since 2010. If you look back at 2022, we're asking each deputy from just a year and a half ago to handle 120 calls for service more a year than they were then. If you were to add the 2 positions that we are asking, that would bring our average down to 419 calls for service, which would be a relief from last year, but it would be the highest. Again, it would still be the highest average since 2010.
Now, the problem with that is that when you do a comparison of what they're drawing calls for service numbers for, you see a dramatic increase in the categories that they've always done the work, now they're drawing a number for. Court activity, never drew a number for court activities, in-person, text, internet, 70, I don't know what that is, but incident errors, public service, public relation, school safety checks. If they stop and do a safety check in a school, they draw a number. They never drew numbers for those before. Special details, they never drew numbers for details before. Attempt to locate on warrants, backgrounds, directed patrol. I mean, these were all categories that they've been doing all along for years. We did them when I was there and whatnot. We never drew numbers for it, but they drew numbers. So those new categories increase the calls for service data, but it doesn't increase the activity. They've been doing that we've been doing that years ago, and they've been doing that all along. They just increased the categories so that increases the data that calls for service. So if you was to take just 2020 and take the data for 2023, and you X out the new categories and whatnot, and compare the 2020 to the 23 on the same categories, you're not gonna see this dramatic increase that's all.
Well, so even though they have more categories,
Our workload changed. That's the glaring factor here for 2022 to date. We went from covering 50% of the county to 66%.
no,
But your data doesn't support that. Your data doesn't support that. You're coming up with data by increasing categories to show that there's a huge increase in the amount of working.
yeah, but even though it's in a new category, when that category didn't exist, wouldn't that call have been just in another category?
No, they never took a number for it. These numbers that you're getting here are generated by RCC because there's a complaint number drawn every time they have this activity. So if you stop at a school, you draw a number and that generates that call. Well, that activity has always been done. It's just that they never assigned a number to it.
So what we're doing is we're capturing what we're actually doing for work. Now, if
You're
you,
capturing better today than you were 3 years ago, and good for you. I mean, that's all, the data is good. I'm just saying, though, he's making it, capturing the data, he's making it sound like there's an increase in activity when there isn't. There's an increase in capturing data. In other words, they're assigning a number to the activity they were doing before, but there's no increase in the activity.
so the one thing I would say is that, again, we went from covering 50% of the county to 66%.
Listen,
That's,
everything he
where
says is
the-
rhetoric. It's all rhetoric.
well, the one thing I was going to say is, it says that the calls for service don't show, but if you look at 2022, that's 6,400 calls to 2023 to 7,800. Now, if you want to look on the second page, for example, of this year's school safety checks that Commissioner Clark is referencing, 18. 18 does not justify the 1,400 calls for service increase that Commissioner Clark is referencing.
What dog, okay. We're switching back and forth, okay.
I think what we also need to keep in mind is that the state police is not signing call sharing agreements with anybody anymore. They're going to a resource agreement, which is not a call sharing agreement. And that is, I think we just need to remember that because they're not obligated by that resource agreement to cover any calls in the county.
And Lieutenant has assured us that he's going to cover 1/3 of the calls, one of the slots, 24/7, for 25. They can't tell you any more than that. Take him at his word.
Well,
So right now, when we look at the budget, you've added 2 new positions, right?
Correct.
And adding that, those 2 new positions, have you also taken into account what's gonna happen in terms of the dreaded vehicle?
Yeah, so if you look at what we had discussed in the last commissioners meeting, one of those vehicles I would bring back to the front line, the one that we had discussed going as a spare, I believe it had about 90,000 miles, I'd keep that on the front line. Additionally, what I would look at doing is I would one of our spares to the front line to help mitigate those costs.
And that to me is a little aggravating because if they were good enough to get a rookie, they should have been good enough to stay there for another year, buying a cruiser, so.
Yeah.
Either they're not good enough for frontline vehicle, or they are good enough. It's not based upon the operator, it's based upon the condition of the vehicle.
Our reasoning behind that is just simply to help mitigate the cost for those additional deputies and try to make it more palatable to budget for.
it's eventually gonna catch up with us.
What is?
That car, we're gonna have to start budgeting for more cars.
Right now, we have $250,000, which is for this year.
You're giving PB fees, fees that.
Would you say that?
Well, right now, we have budgeted 250,000
Correct.
vehicles. Is that correct? That's what it looks like to me.
Well, I can just see what's gonna happen at the VAC. You know, we're gonna have communities cry out for more service. Which I understand. I think this is a stab at trying to do that.
Why do you think that? What have you heard for concrete data that justifies the fact that they need 2 more people? And that's gonna take care of the calls for service.
Well,
I haven't heard anything yet that says that staff they have on board right now isn't handling all the calls. There was no calls going undone. You can say it any way you want, but the data they gave us supports 2 1/3 calls a day per deputy. And I can tell you from experience, that's not a lot of calls. You can handle 2 1/3 calls per deputy.
But that's given people don't take vacations and have any time off. Or are sick. So when you take that into account, the number goes up.
All you've gotten is rhetoric. Haven't got any hard data that justifies. And again, this is almost 400,000. First year, just implementing this.
I'm not sure where 400,000 comes from. You have the wages of 2 people, and then obviously you have the health insurance, the FICA and stuff, but, I mean, an easy way to look at that is 400,000 is nowhere close, because if you were to look at Department 46 for 2 people, for example, which is a Maine drug rate, which is significantly higher than our wages here at the sheriff's office, that's nowhere near 400,000.
Well, do the math for a minute.
Yeah.
69,000 gross wages.
Okay.
For 2 deputies.
Okay.
That's 140 right there.
Yep.
150,000 for 2 cruisers.
If you're talking long-term, yes, buying the cruisers, then yes. The upfront cost would not be the 150,000, because we'd be mitigating it.
Well, I can tell you, I can justify it. I can give you a breakdown of $388,000.
Long-term, I may be the cost
That doesn't,
upfront.
and that doesn't include any buyout that you're gonna have, that you're gonna need. Can't remember the last time you guys hired a guy that didn't report a buyout.
What, 2 meetings ago?
Wages, 138,000, benefits, 79,000. For a total cost of 218,000.
That sounds pretty accurate.
Then you start adding in cruisers, equipment costs. Equipment is nearly $50,000.
So equipment, I would outfit them with our uniform and boots and the public safety line. Cruisers.
You got impact further, you got a camera, you got a taser, you gotta have uniforms. You're up now to $40-some thousand right there.
I think that, I would agree with your statement of the 218, I think we'd be close to that number.
Here's what I just did. I took 2010 to 2023. Basically, the calls for service have gone up 65%. So if you were just to take 10 officers there and increase it by that 65%, you get 17.
You know, and figures lie and liars figure.
The one thing
Those calls for service have been inflated because they're reporting activity they've always been doing, they're just reporting it now that they never did before.
All right, you're documenting the work that they're doing.
Good for you, you should be, you should.
Well, right,
You should
that's
have been
what we
doing it
should
for
be
a long
doing.
time. I'm just saying that,
So you can't fault us for actually showing you the numbers of what we're doing.
but acknowledge the fact that you're not, your increase, your activity has increased by that amount. It's just
Well, the-
reporting it.
The one thing I bring to your attention, gentlemen, is that 2010 that you're referencing, Commissioner Brady. I agree, under that, those calculations, you are correct, that would boil up to 17. What I would say is that that was the highest cost for service that you can see, other than what I'm predicting for this 2024 year, which would be 3 calls, actually just 3 calls for service difference over the totality of the year.
Say that again so I can follow.
So 2010.
Yeah.
Your math calculations, I completely agree with. That'd be the highest cost for service. If you look all the way to the right column, 474 per deputy.
Yeah,
So if you were to go down all the way to the 2024 at the very bottom, we now are at this closest number to that in recent years. I think we can agree on that. The one thing that I would say is that if you look at 2010 compared to 2015 now, I can only assume that Commissioner Clark, when he was sheriff, made the same statement for more deputies, because in response to those calls for service, in response to that number of calls per deputy, he then grew his department by 3 deputies as a result. So we are making the same statement, saying that as a result, those calls for service are more than we would like to have per deputy for them to be adequately investigating the incidents or responding to the incidents that they're responsible for. And I think if you look at 2010 to 2015, that shows what Commissioner Clark's push would have been, and that's the same push that we're making today.
just for giggles, let's do the same number at 476. Let's grab this smallest number and see what happens. I gotta assume that it's,
Which number are you referencing?
well, the smallest number is 3. Well, we can't use 2022 just because, you know, the numbers are.
Yeah, our responsibility changed between.
Yeah. So let's take the, like, 2019.
Yes.
That's even more, that brings it to 20.
20 deputies. Yeah.
So-
We're looking to have 18 in patrol is what we're asking for. What is what these 2 positions would put us at.
I say what's that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right now, we're at 16. We're asking for 18.
I guess the question is, do we leave this in the budget or don't we leave this? That's the question. At this point, bring in VAC.
Is 16 now include storms and contract deputy?
It does.
Does it include? Well, did airport?
It does not include the airport or swans. It does include swans.
Do you remember off the top of your head who's in what section? The Kramer's section is Hunter and Anthony Jones still there.
Correct.
You know who his 4th one is?
There is no fourth.
Mahon is not.
He's at the airport. He's
Yeah. So Travis Frost. His section is Zach Allen.
And Devin Grindle.
Who else?
That's it.
Marcus Downs, his
Alan Medina and Cam Jennings.
Rob is Marisa, Stanley, and Nailhawk.
Correct. What you're not including in that is the 2 detectives, 2
They're
lieutenants.
not in the section.
No, but they are, I did include them in that 16 number, if that's what you're trying to compare to. I included lieutenants, detectives, and road deputies.
I'm looking at a report that you submitted that it says it's updated in February of 24.
Yes.
And to answer your question, Paul, I said, no, take it out. Section, assigned to two deputies, and especially on the day shift, because you got a chief deputy, you got some days 2 lieutenants, you've got 2 detectives available for backup for involved cases. I haven't seen any evidence where complaints that they're handling now are not getting handled, not getting completed. And as far as having to do reports, do their reports right in the cruiser.
Yes. Doesn't matter where they do it, it still takes time.
Well, it takes a foot more time, you can only do them in the office, you have to go back to the office, do your report, it's more efficient today. You know, when you finish a report, finish a activity, you do your report right from your car.
What I will say in that regard is you're correct. We are able to type in the car, although you are also correct, Mr. Perry, it does take time. When it does come to documenting, we are asked and required to document much more today than I was even 10 years ago. So the time spent on reports has increased, I will say that.
And again, rhetoric, so Anthony, you're basing your opinion, no data reported.
I've provided the data for the calls for service.
Are you getting all your calls handled? All your calls getting responded to and handled?
When does it come to the point when we're overworking the staff that's here?
Oh, geez, here we go, all day long.
I think what it boils down to is it boils down to we're in the business of public service, right? There are multiple instances where there are individuals that do make a complaint or do call and follow up because their complaint may not get handled in the timely manner that they would prefer. And that's what this boils down to. Will we always handle the calls for service that we're given? The best of our abilities, I can tell you that. That's what we're here to do. But does it become a point where it is unmanageable? It certainly does, and it does delay that ability to do it in a timely manner. I think, again, if you look at 2010 compared to 2015, Commissioner Park himself, when he was sheriff, has the highest calls for service, he increased by 3 deputies. We're looking to do the same thing, but we're not looking by 3.
So this is where I am. I just doing the raw numbers here, I come up with 17
From when to when?
from, well, the calculation that I described from 2010 to 2023. And to me, and excuse me, that's correct, 2023. And the predicted calls still comes out to about 17.
And we're down to 16.
Yeah, 16. Just, I mean, I don't have the experience you have, Bill, so I mean, all I can do is look at this. And
See, but it's things that you don't need experience to wonder about. For example, if these deputies are so busy, that they have so much work, that they need more help, why don't the sheriff's department implement policy where every deputy had to have a minimum of 30 contacts a month. So every deputy, regardless of what, he's got to have 30 contacts a month. Well, why would you implement that if your deputies are so busy anyways with with the on-calls? You know what I mean? And so consequently, here's, they're coming up with
Where are
stopping
you?
it.
Is that in this?
No, that's happening, though. That's happening. And I'm just saying, if they were so busy that they needed more help, why would they need a mandate from the supervisors that they have a minimum of 30 contacts a month? So, I mean, you don't have to have experience to wonder about that.
Well, I didn't know that.
Well, you do now.
Where'd you get that information?
Doesn't make a difference. It's there. You know it's there.
Oh, I do
It's a-
know, I know that, I'm just curious why you got it.
Well, doesn't make any difference. It's there.
I got an idea, but I'll keep that to myself.
Yeah.
Okay.
Commissioner, being in law enforcement for over 30 years, how we used to do it back when I started and when Commissioner Clark was sheriff, it's day and night difference now. Legislators now require us to do so much more. The mental health calls, domestic violence now, you've got to document, interview, Bill Dora. When I first came down here, I did the yellow flag law personally myself. It ate up my entire day. It is time consuming. So the numbers might show, and might not agree or disagree, but we document, and the majority of these calls are so much more paperwork and time consuming involved. I can testify to that because I've lived it. We require more out of them.
And sometimes you need two folks or two deputies on a call. Is that correct?
Most domestic calls, or nearly all domestic calls, are sent to individuals, fights, mental health calls. I mean, if you only have two available, we send everybody we have.
And impaired driving by drugs can tie an officer up for a DRE for hours.
I mean, it's just the calls for service that we handle, even the simple ones require either a response or some form of documentation where you have the other calls for service that will eat up hours of a day or entire shifts. It's just the nature of how it is, and that's the duty that we have to the public to investigate their complaints and service them the best way that we can.
The other part of that
Just
is,
have that go to the BAC as it is.
the other part of that is that you're seeing just one documented call for service. I mean, a deputy might open that card 3 or 4 different times throughout the.
When you say open that card.
So that specific number, that call number that it generates, they may open it 4 or 5 times, just doing follow-up over the course of the investigation. So, I mean, really, they're still working on that card, but you're never gonna see an extra number because it's just, that card only gets one number. They're just doing follow-up to that specific call.
Basically, it's the same investigation, what he's saying. It's just not a new card generated. If it carries over to another day, it's still the same card, calls for service.
Correct.
It's just, it's a continued investigation.
The problem is, they don't have data on how many of those are. You don't open up that call, that's a 911 hang up. You go find out it's a 911 hang up, that's it, you don't open that up again. And domestic abuse, you get one of those every 4 days, one every 4 days on the average, 24 hours, 2 shifts, 8 guys per shift, per day. And you get one every 4 days, so, the fact that it takes 2 of them to handle a domestic, tie her up for a couple hours, it's 2 guys, whatnot, it only happens every 4 days on the average, so, this is all record.
And you have a 48-hour
You guys
follow-up
have
on
already
after that.
wasted enough alcohol on the sheriff's department, it's no time that this is real tax money. This goes right back to the property taxpayer now. That $388,000, 2 of those deputies, it's gonna come right off the tax bill.
What we're trying to avoid is something similar to last year, right? Where then you come back and you fill these positions. Now we're trying to find the funds. So that's why we're bringing it up now to try to address that.
I think I'm with you, John. I my experience, limited experience with BAC, even if we took these out, they're gonna get added in. I'm thinking we send this, is that your thinking, John?
Yeah.
And when it comes back, still in there, you say, well, the VAC told us. Just away another 388,000.
That's a little offensive, Commissioner.
Yeah, good. I'm glad you're offended.
Very much so.
Because
I'm very
wasting
offended most of the time. You have something to say. You want to take it out on me and punish me because of the relationship that you and I don't have. And you're punishing these people. When you take your hands and throw them up and go quality of life, quality of life may not mean anything to you, Commissioner. But these people, these young people have children that are growing up and they deserve to be able to spend time.
You know, I don't think I need to be talked down by somebody with ethical.
You mean like you?
Like you do.
You mean like you do?
All right, guys, that's enough.
So you don't leave it, you won't leave that in it, leave it and be there when it comes back, and be there when you approve the budget.
Okay, I have a question at the very top of
Yeah.
this. The other, there's 6% there where we've held it.
I can, you talking about the sheriff and chief?
Yeah,
Yes, I can speak directly to that. The reasoning for that is similar to probate. So if you look at the union contract with lieutenants would be, for example, on the pay wage, the chief's salary here with the proposed 6% increase would only be 1% higher than the lieutenants.
so this is the same problem
It
that
is.
all the other departments have.
If you gave them the 3%, for example, a lieutenant would be making more than the chief.
So,
I go back to my earlier question, right now I understand you're saying 3.2, so.
yeah, well, but it's not 3.2 here.
No, I know, I would have to be adjusted
Yeah,
based on
You know-
what you've said so far.
I think it's gotta be 3.2 because that's what we've gotta be consistent with the other departments, knowing that we have to adjust this. Is that your thought, or? And we know we have to do something about this across the other departments.
Town contracts.
We're in, those two amounts match, so. Same money in and same money out.
We got 487. Budget, we got 474 on expenditures.
I have 47,095 both ways.
You?
So that's 48, 7,
822.
47. Great, 22.
Yeah. What do you have?
They matched last week, pretty sure.
Am I looking in the right place here? Revenues,
Also see-
2025, I had 47,095.
We agree with that. And your expenditure line down at the bottom, at the totals.
We gotta flip the page. Oh,
No, that's right.
no, I'm sorry. Oh, this is in here twice, that's fine.
So it looks like the
Oh, I see.
health insurance
Yeah,
Okay.
differs on those two.
Yeah.
So why is this? Twice, that's why. Yeah. You're right.
Yeah, all right.
Well, it's in the right direction.
Yeah.
yeah.
More revenue, expenditures,
Yeah.
fine.
Additionally, their access has gone into the patterns of.
They've identified 17.5 for vehicle reserves, but the bottom line is that anything left over should be the vehicle reserve. So the difference right there of $15,000. You put that on top of 17.5, it's like 30,000.
Times or as much as 25,000.
I did, it must be something I did because if the first version, both numbers did match.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure it's in the health insurance.
yeah,
So I believe the 487,095 is the more correct.
okay. Okay.
Did
The
it look
last
like-
version I had that I looked at, they both match, so. I think that, yeah, it's gonna be, I would assume. I'll go with the comments in the right direction, so.
We move on to some processes.
Yeah,
Because
it's in those two health
Yeah,
insurance.
and originally I finally worked out a lot of my health insurance numbers and the town contract health insurance amount. If it's now showing as 0, it's because those are all buyouts. So that's all paid for by the county. So it comes out of, it doesn't come out of the town contract.
Okay, so that's why we're showing
Yeah,
more of our revenue.
But we still bill the towns for the line, right? We better be. We don't have to pay contract buyouts.
well,
The fact that
I don't
the
think we've
buy-
had, I don't think we've had that situation where we've had employees that are in
Who does the
buyouts.
billing for the towns? The SO or you?
Yeah, so it is. Well, we have an hourly rate that we, yes, that we.
Right.
But the low cost.
We have historically. Yes. I think Monica is correct, where this is at least the first year I'm aware of
Yeah.
in recent years where it's been a buyout and not like a single subscriber or a
Right.
family or whatnot. So to answer your question, Commissioner Clark, I agree, the buyout should come from the town or corporate.
So we've got one airport security officer. How do you, why is there $156,000 expenditure?
So we had two on paper. We've had two on paper. And what that is they've, looking back at years past, it was two on paper, but looking back at years past, you had the part-time wage increase. You had, and what happened was is, if you look at the wages for airport security wages, you look at airport security part-time. They increased the part-time security wages. And what we're looking to do is utilize the same amount of money and just accurately reflect the budget is what we're
Oh,
going
that's
for.
not accurate. Airport security wages for 01-169 is the full-time airport security officer.
Yes,
You have one.
we had,
You're not paying him 156,000, so that should reflect John Maynard's gross wage.
we had
And
two.
if you're paying others to work down there, it should come out of your airport security part-time.
We had two on paper for the airport security because of the need for 7 days a week around the clock, 7 days a week, 365 for airport
You don't have
security.
two, you might have it on paper, but you don't have two officers. You
We-
can't just,
We always assign a person to the airport each day. Now, you are correct. What we're looking to do is effectively, we have, right now, what we're doing is we have somebody in Department 10, right? We have X amount of deputies in Department 10. When John Maynard's not working, I assign one of those deputies in Department 10, and they have to work the airport, so we have to cover the airport 7 days a week.
And then you transfer it.
Exactly. And so when Leroy was looking at doing the contract with the airlines, and I had sat down, had a conversation about what the cost would look like, incorporated that in the contract, and the number that Leroy had incorporated in the contract for airport security was 225,000. I needed to make sure I stayed under that while still being able to provide him coverage 7 days a week, and that is exactly what I did here. So when I say accurately trying to reflect the
unlike
budget,
other, well, I shouldn't say unlike other. In the airport, Leroy has a budget item for airport security.
Yeah.
But he doesn't pay the actual bill. Each month, they take 1/12 of his budget and out of it from it. So it has nothing to do with what it costs to provide that. It has to do with what he budgeted.
But this is what it costs.
this is the real cost to provide that. Because
gotta
I still
pay
have to
that.
provide coverage 7 days a week.
So this is what pays his wage, not Leroy's.
Leroy factored in his budget 225,000, came in at 224 and some change. These are the actual costs to provide that coverage.
You don't have that in front of you, you have to.
Airport,
Well, we're gonna get to it. Oh,
what'd you need though? Airport security budget for the airport.
Yeah. Well, that's another day. Never mind, come on, we don't move on.
All right, 217,650.
And this is annual budget for
Yeah.
that.
That was why we were met, I believe it was in May, when he knew he was going out for the new contract with the airlines. Looking ahead, what would we need, and that was the number we came up with, 225, and that's what he incorporated for 25 in that contract. And then in addition to account for contract raises, he incorporated a 5% escalator each fall.
But 217.
Yep.
You're budgeting 175,000 in expenditures. But you're taking the full 217 for the airport.
No, I'm budgeting 224, and some change in expenditures. When you factor in the retirement, health insurance, the part-time wage, overtime, the wages, workers, the comp buyout, things like that. The total amount for those two employees and provide coverage at the airport's 224,000. So you would have had it all together.
Okay, yeah. All right, let's go to civil processes. Everything. Why did we double the vehicle repairs, maintenance repairs?
Are you talking about civil?
Yeah,
The reason for that was due to the fact that if we have to replace the tires, for example, in addition to any routine maintenance, like we typically will replace the tires once a year on that due to the miles driven. Then if we have to do the routine maintenance such as oil change, any alignments.
what vehicle is this?
That's the civil service deputy, civil paperwork.
Why haven't we had to do all those things before?
We did, and as you can see, if you look at year to date so far, I believe, let me pull that sheet back out in front of me.
17.
Oh. Yep. So yeah, if you look year to date for the vehicles, we are already at 1717, which is over the 1500. So I think 3000 is probably a realistic number because we still have tires to put on that vehicle probably sometime this winter.
This may be in the abnormal year, but for 5-year average, it's only been 1,263.
Okay. I mean, we can certainly look at scaling it back. I thought 3000 was a more realistic number. I'd like to come in a little higher than come up in the red. So
What actual vehicle is being used for civil?
it's a pickup truck. It's a Chevy Silverado that we had purchased we turned of the year this past year. So with the mileage, the road conditions, the civil service deputy, dirt road, paved roads, everything. So alignments, tires, brakes, oil, things like that. I mean, we can certainly dial it back. You're welcome to. Like I said, I'd rather be high and come up with excess than be in the red.
How old's the vehicle?
The 2024, 2023, I believe, but we just put in service this year.
We just bought that without the funds here.
All right, 2000. How about
2000.
that? 2000.
Yeah, so the
This year is gonna be overshoot, but you're saying we should go to 2000. No, is that what you're suggesting?
Well, the data doesn't support 3,000. I don't understand why he's having a bad year with a brand new vehicle. Still hasn't bought tires for it.
I'd have to look into what has been paid out of the account. It's very possible that some of that money may have been paid out in the prior vehicle before it was transferred over. I don't know.
So we wanting to change that or no?
Yeah, 2,000.
So,
So, you got anything else? Oh. All right, let's go on to drug and task force.
So you and I have talked since the last time. Does the 144,776 represent
Where,
revenues for drug task force?
okay,
144,776 revenues, does that represent the entire gross wages of one agent and the deputies' gross wages for the other?
the difference of the deputies.
Not the,
So it,
the revenue is the difference.
yes, it is,
Full
the-
cost of one and the difference of the other. That's
Correct.
what I would-
you are correct.
And the expenditure line for wages is the total cost of two agents, the full cost, state at state rate.
Correct.
you mean the 141,776?
What happens is.
I thought you said 144, that's why I was.
Well, because there's some money in there for employee insurance too, but it is 141.
141,
Yeah, I knew it.
777, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I know you- yes, that is the,
Just
that
want to
is,
make sure.
a direct representation of that form that you provided there.
Wow. Numbers are always building up. The state pays the full cost of one agent. That's at the, it's the state police detective payment.
So that's the way it used to be. They've since changed that.
Only last meeting, what is it
Yeah,
now?
so they've since changed that. Now it is with the new director for Maine Drug, they have adopted a scale would be a poor way to classify it, but it is a wage which is then gauged upon experience, and it's a sliding scale essentially. So that you know,
More than the deputies pay.
it is, yes.
So the state pays a rate over and above what the deputy earns for his wages. So they pay the full cost of one agent. We pay the cost of the deputy's pay, and then they pay the difference between the deputy's pay and the state wage. So the deputy's pay,
That's just right.
so A represents the state's rate of pay. B represents the deputy's rate of pay. And C is the difference between the two. So when you look at your revenue, because they pay the full cost of one, it's A. And when they pay only the difference between deputy and the state, it's C. And that combined is 88,982.
And then you have the benefits for that employee plus,
No, wait a minute, you shouldn't have had benefits in here, this is just your 136 wage line, benefits are in another line.
Well, he's proving out the revenue.
right. Exactly.
Yeah.
NDA revenues, right, yep. That's the money there, isn't it? That revenues are in the, I mean, benefits are in the revenue line, but it's not in expenditure.
That's right.
All right, never mind.
Well, it is, but further down, somewhere else.
Well, I know.
It is in the expenditure, like, for
No,
example.
what I'm saying is that, revenues, 112 is wages and benefits.
Correct.
But 136 is only wages.
Correct,
Benefits are down below.
correct.
That's where it is. See, the 158 is apples and oranges against the 141 because one is benefits and one doesn't.
Correct.
Yeah, okay, never mind. I'm making it up. I've been.
Can we keep this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
You're gonna do jail cap,
So this should also include the other department more, wow, just one and it was separated last year, so he's gonna talk a little bit about the capital, but then the other item that we talked about the other day.
I have sets, I have updated sets for you.
Today.
So should this replace, let's see,
Add it, put it in front of.
I'm confused here, Monica. This one you just handed us is what?
It's brand new, Department 11 and 24.
Supersedes what's in the book?
Yeah.
Yes,
So we put this in.
and you're gonna see,
The
Yes.
11's still the same number though, right? That's the cap.
Oh, yeah.
but you're gonna see a commission line here, just to, it's not what you have approved or anything, or you've requested, but we thought it was the easiest way to see what we've changed. And try to go through line by line to see what. In the revenue, you see the,
Shoot, just a minute. We're not really getting into the jail cap. The cap's a cap, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so we're now,
now, we have set it 4%, which is the max.
okay, so
Of
now
the
we're
two
talking,
29,
right, but now we're talking about 24, Department 24.
yeah.
And the issue there that we,
you'll see there's been an adjustment made in line 502. And but the big thing you're seeing is the operating fund,
which part?
the top.
First federal boarding?
Yeah. You'll see what I presented last meeting, and the commissioners, nothing what you guys agreed with, but we put that line in, you can see where, instead of sending a copy or something in black and white, you can see what changes that we discussed today, and Michael on it.
So you're saying, so what you're saying is the 100 is more realistic? than
Yeah,
the
yes,
130.
yeah, that's where we're going to, these are the numbers that were.
Yeah.
But you go down to the county jail operating
Just a minute.
funds,
Can we change your number to 100 then?
well, we can't, yes.
It's the old notion that if they see a department head and the commissioner agreeing, then it's they move on.
No, we wanted to make sure you knew what we are doing. It's easy, we thought easier this way, maybe I confused it with this idea.
No, you didn't, it makes sense to me.
But I can change, make that correction. But you also see down in the jail operating funds, we got a number stating what we're actually gonna be receiving. And an increase of $120,000 this year.
We need to make it.
The,
516, 24, 516 in the revenue.
the 769.15 is a real number now.
So we should change the 640, 800, and match those two things.
In revenue.
The actual number now we're receiving from the state is 769.15.
Okay, so that's a known number that we didn't have last time.
Right.
We can change your number too.
Yep, we'll change that back to that also.
Hey, you told us that that other one was a stat and you would be updating.
Right, yeah, so we have that number.
Yeah.
We don't know how this figure came about, because some counties got reduced
$320,000, and we get an increase of $120,000. So that's a conversation the jail administrators had today, but, no one knows how that figure.
Okay, so it's a $50,000 increase over the last time we did.
Oh, that's 120.
Yeah, $120,000 increase over the last time.
Get it back out of that 30, that I'm talking.
Means overall net.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
So it's 90,000. Yeah, okay. Okay.
why did the federal boarding one?
We
Because
was,
that was a guess and this.
yeah, well, we was out of federal boarding because, we just wasn't receiving inmates, and they sent us, we're sitting on 6 now, but it was $10,000, I think, last.
Look at the actuals
Yeah, the actuals was way down last year,
this year.
and this year until now, we're back, we're boosted back up where we were 2 years ago.
I'm still looking, we 3+1 where is it?
We didn't know where we was gonna,
Well, I mean, that
how we was gonna put that.
technically isn't reflected in your overall expenditures right now, right?
Correct.
They haven't built in whatever the actual medical costs are gonna be with this new contract, right?
Right, because we could put in 647, or we could put in 1.2 million. That's the two
Well,
budgets that will be discussed.
no matter what the number is, I think we need to decide right now whether or not we're going to do that. If we are, it really doesn't make any difference what the number is. But we should be giving the BAC a number so that they understand that we're going to increase the county budget by 647,000 or 1.2 million or something. Yeah, I don't think that's something we should not do today and then do it after they give it back to us.
So.
No, I-
Decided yet on the contract, though, right?
I know it, and that's the problem. You got one that's low as 647, one as high as 1.2, and we don't know what we're gonna get, but it doesn't make any difference today what the number is so much as the fact that we are going to do it. You know, we can take an average between the two, 900,000.
Which line is that?
It's not in
It's
there.
not long.
We discussed that today. We're gonna put that in the, under contractual for the inmate medical line, or do we want?
I'd like to see it separated into a separate line, so it's identified, and you can talk about why that number's.
My suggestion that it was included in Department 24, which is our MAT grant, and then money, we show money, 25, shows money coming in, money going out, actually, it's just one department that MAT grant fund comes to.
We have a separate budget.
Say it out. It's a whole, they pay us what it costs to run the operation. 25, Adkins set that up back a few years ago. 25 or MAT grant.
It's a
And
grant.
we're gonna have to raise this money through taxation.
Yes, some of it, but like some of the,
We're gonna have to raise, well, I say, you're gonna take some out of the
MAT grant money, take some of the medical line, I mean, yeah, some, we do have some. We're not gonna have to pay our contracts that we have now. So the money we have contracted now, we could transfer in.
and the opioid settlement, did that qualify for some of that?
That's what other departments are using, yes,
How much, all of it?
as much as you want to use.
How much we got in there? How much is in the opioid? So, how much medical can you reduce?
Be around 150,000, if you include the MAT grant, which is 91,000.
Which is in medical?
No, which is a whole different, which is Department 25. We have those funds, because they'll be taking this department, this contract also oversees the MAT portion.
We don't have 25 in the book.
No, because it's,
No. It's $90,400, money in, money out, from state grant.
So last time, didn't we talk about, didn't we use round numbers and say this was about $1 million?
Yeah. So here's the first item.
Yeah.
Before we gave proposal.
Yeah, and then we said that I thought the number was 250,000 was gonna be, you know, from all these other sources, whether it come out of some lines in here
Mhm.
or the grant or whatever. So I thought we were talking about a net of 750. Does that ring a bell for anybody?
Yeah, when we first started, but we got 90, 30. Give me close.
Because I think that somewhere
Somewhere.
we need to include whatever that dollar amount is, whether, let's just say it's 750 now. That needs to be included in here somehow.
And you've got to get that difference built into the budget one way or the other.
yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
I don't understand the math, separate account,
it's grant funds.
nevertheless.
This isn't.
It's,
Nevertheless, though, why couldn't grant amount be shown as a revenue in the jail?
Because he did it for the tracking purposes, so every cent, we can prove every cent went to fund that.
this has been part of what I've been trying to make clear as well, is the fact that we're spending out of 24, we're spending out for the inmate medical. But it gets billed back to the grant. So we're not realizing all the money that we're expending because it's sitting there waiting to be paid back to the grant.
Do you,
Which
what do you
makes
think,
sense.
what do you think about putting the grant money in 24?
Well, it's hard because it's all a G account. It's all run through a G account.
But you can't spend out of G account, you're,
No, that's right. It's
so
spent out
you're
of,
transferring that into Department 25,
it's spent when they do the expenditures.
and then you're reimbursing out of the G account?
No, when we get reimbursed, it's reimbursing the G account.
That's okay, huh?
Quarterly, that's where it's been since it started.
Yep.
Well,
We can do quarterly reports, and that was the easiest way we can show every net, what if it's spent contractually, or it was spent for office supplies, or spent for medication.
All right, anyways, that's a number, right?
Yeah.
Whatever that number is. Using the $1 million figure, we're gonna sign a contract for $1 million, hypothetically. So we're gonna take 90 off that, as max, right? We're gonna take another 90, reduce our medical account by 90, is that what
I will
you're saying?
get those exact numbers, but we get the contracts, exact contract.
Hypothetically, what would you take out of medical, 90
well, he just said 180.
or 180?
With,
No, there's only
Could you get-
150 in there. In the inmate medical line, he only has 150,000.
right, 36,
Oh, because he was including the grant.
right. We might get to around 100,000, 90,000 out of that 150.
Okay,
So
so
now
that's
we're at 180.
180, any other revenue? Any other reduction to the $1 million?
No, because we're gonna have to maintain and make pharmaceutical pay for our own medication.
All right, so now we're talking about $820,000 you need to meet your contract, correct?
Right.
And so we'll have a line in the expenditure account.
Yep.
For, and I don't know what you're gonna call it, something, of $820,000 that we're gonna appropriate for taxation. For this. What are you gonna call that? Expenditure. What do you-
Like mental health services, is that,
Pretty much.
It's also physical.
Yes, but a lot of them fall under, they consider them psychiatric care, but it does include medical, dental, mental health,
inmate health.
inmate health, I guess. but
Yeah, I think we can agree upon that, on inmate health, and we'll realize that that's how much.
We're talking 820.
Are we leaving the inmate medical?
Why don't we get a decision made? It won't be before it goes to BAC, but it will be by the time it gets back.
When's BAC?
They're gonna start first October, for 3 or 4 weeks, 4 or 5 weeks.
So right now, what you're working on is what you're gonna send to the public hearing, and then you can change it after the public hearing's over, obviously,
We're hoping to present
and then that would go to BAC.
our recommendations next commission.
Are we also looking to reduce, did you say the inmate medical line
By 90,000.
by 90,000? Okay.
So the question, the reductions you made are based on a hypothetical $1 million right
Right.
now, so.
So if it's lower than $1 million, it's
Then you'd almost have to build in $1 million in this, and then subtract out the other line items to make it equal the net again of 820.
The problem is that you can't have $1 million expenditure in 24 if you're paying for 90,000 out of 25. So it's, I mean, you should have a $910,000 expenditure with reduction of 90,000 from your, well, $1 million. Yeah, 910,000, the $90,000 reduction in medical, right, Monica?
So the,
Yes.
yeah, the MAT and that portion would be just the two quarters, yeah.
So the expenditure line would be 910, not even.
Okay.
You have to understand that another 90,000 is coming out of 25. All right. Good to me.
Does.
Yeah. So on my call, Steve. Oh, I don't think it's any other way. I'm just curious. What,
Oh, no, we're gonna hear about this, but what else can we?
well,
I mean, you should,
I welcome the opportunity to discuss it someday.
Yeah,
Hey,
to explain it, and
your legislators did this.
Is it my understanding that VAC doesn't see 24?
well, they haven't historically, well, and even last
Yeah.
year, you didn't really spend a lot of time on 24 as a commission either, so.
But
They see
That-
only 11.
is because we always worked on the tax cap. So we said, what's the sense of giving to them?
Okay.
No, but that's not the case anymore.
Okay.
We're basically thumbing our nose at the tax cap. And I think they should get 24. And understand that we're gonna raise
Otherwise, it
900.
doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. So, yeah,
4% is gonna go to.
well, what's $1 million to the tax, the increases?
They're gonna have 1.2. The cap, 2.2.
No, I'm talking about another 910,000 to the, we write down
In total.
11%. 11 something,
11.8.
almost 12,
That's
so
12.
that's another million.
They're talking the overall budget.
Right.
Well, that's another 10%, right? So that's really.
So it's almost 20% again.
Which from the two counties at the meeting I was at that did this, that at least admitted to the fact that they did this, that was where their numbers were.
Oh, really?
They were around, I believe it was 18 up to 24 or 26, something like that. Percent increase that they went to their committee with,
And you add in
and it went through.
payroll increases.
Yeah. We're trying, which we have to deal with. So we're gonna need to explain this, and we're gonna have to figure out how to explain this well to the EAC.
And we have a attorney well versed in it. Willing to speak on behalf why it's, why
We're not
liability.
gonna pay him to talk to the EAC. $1,000 an hour.
It is something that a lot of other counties, either smaller counties, and us are looking to do the
The
same.
legislative representative on the committee should be fully versed in this.
Yes. That's a good point.
They're the ones that passed the law, so
So do we know who that is this year?
it's still the same person because they changed the law to make it a 2-year appointment.
Oh, that's right.
And it's not,
I know, I was
it's
so
not
embarrassed
Nicole,
last.
Nicole Bukowski.
It's,
We call that woman Nicole last year.
Yeah.
Last meeting, she walked up and introduced
Nina.
herself.
Nina.
Nina. No,
But this is something that we've taken pretty serious up there. We know that. And I've probably had too many conversations with each proposal to verify what they can do, what they say they can do with the money, because I know it all falls back on the jail, myself, to make this work. So it's not anything we've taken lightly, we've been years talking about this.
so number wise, it sounds like looks like a 40-0-19.
Yeah, I'll have to.
Well, you got an 18 and 20, but medical is 18, labor relations 20. That would fit right in there, 19.
I think that's what you mentioned at the meeting today.
019 is going to be $910,000. Is that it? Okay.
Okay.
We got
At the,
19.
no, hold on, before we, at the top, we have the same problem that we did before. We gotta decide whether we're gonna be consistent or not. So far, we have been.
Yeah.
And exactly the same sales pitch here is the
I-
position's gonna have separations and that's.
Yeah.
I get it, but, and then,
And the, not to cut up, but also this is a negotiation year for the jail, so we really don't know.
Yeah.
What number I can even plug in there, where you know, I'm sure you guys have an idea where you wanna be.
Well, if I'm gonna negotiate it, I'm gonna try to have it not be locked in at 6%. Just saying. I think that's what I'm doing.
no, but I mean, in fairness, yeah. And one of my, you know, I hate to backtrack, but it's kind of important. We said we're gonna do 3.2, we're gonna send 3.2 to the BAC and then, you know, talk about it after. What's gonna happen is the BAC is gonna take each individual, they're not gonna look at it holistically, like we're trying to do. So how are we gonna rectify that?
Yeah.
Just do it at the end, Bill, is that what you're
That's
thinking?
right. It should be at the end.
But you're not gonna have different scales unless you want to create a whole bunch of new scales for non-exempt employees. So, I mean, I think the BAC's gotta understand that at the end of the day, that scale, so.
Well, and, you know, one thing that might be helpful. Our county budgets, those are public documents, right, for every county?
Yeah.
I mean, would it be, is there somebody who could sort of, like, do a wage study based on that? Because, you know, we could be totally out of lunch here. You understand?
Yeah, you're saying, look at all the
Yeah, like for, you know,
budgets that are.
I did,
this one's in front of us.
I did one to where we got to where we are now. There's large jails or small jails, and we're kind of that medium sized.
Yeah.
And we're averaged within that medium. We were 3 years ago, averaged within that middle class, middle sized jails. We weren't high end, we weren't low end,
Well,
averaging within that.
well, the contention is, we're talking about jail right now, but it can be extrapolated to the whole county. You know, it's not the whole county, but all department heads, or all departments. It sounds like we've got, or potentially we've gotten out of whack. So I wonder if there's a way
Out of whack with who? Amongst ourselves or with other counties?
with other counties. Both, actually.
How do you know that?
No, we don't, I don't know that. I'm speculating.
Those salary surveys, whatnot, can be very involved anyway. So treasurer's a good example. You got some treasurers around the state and whatnot who just sign checks and they get a token. Then we have others that the treasurer, if you look at the treasurers in Hancock County, it's what, $5,000, $5,600?
5,200.
5,200. Well, that's misleading. I mean, our finance director gets 70,000, somewhat. You see what I'm saying? So you go to read those, unless you know what you're looking at, can't even hardly figure that out. But,
Well, we gotta have data somewhere.
well, the last one we got was 9, but there was key counties missing in there for us.
Oh, yeah, there was.
Because I can, just like Tim does, that we're in the middle. We're right there. And our salaries should reflect that mid-range between York County and Washington. you know. So, but there's key counties for us missing out of that report.
No, but I'm just want to be set up so that when we get to the end, we have a way to.
I know, but what you want is what you've got, you just didn't get it all. Was that 23, Michael?
I believe so, but there could have been some, see, that's part of it too, depending on the timing of when they were collecting the data. They could have been using some,
And they're
could
still
have been
doing,
using 24 and the other ones.
we're
could
still doing studies. People are always asking me, what is this?
So
It's
I mean,
ongoing.
I've got an idea where I might be able to look, but again, it just depends on how detailed the budget numbers, because I mean, we all have to report that into the state. So you can get online and pull those numbers, but the question is what goes into them, how clear is it? And if they have a department breakdown, then we might be able to compare some of those department positions. But again, it may not be apples to apples.
Well, I understand that. I am just trying to get us so that when we make that decision, we're making a decision with at least some data.
The department heads will need
What,
to show.
how else, how else are we gonna go about it?
Rhetoric. I should get 2 new deputies. Rhetoric.
This, I'm not.
I mean, I know me as my department head, I can send an email out and get 15 salaries by
Well, let's
noon
take a
down
look
tomorrow.
and see what we can come up
I
with.
mean,
Yeah, I just wanna be set up. I don't like this
Well, I'm
argument.
still confused. Why isn't the data from your salary survey we got, even though it's not complete?
It's not.
Can't we, what if we just focused on the other 7 counties that didn't report? And try to get to.
Well, I mean, that's potentially, if there's enough data online with what we're required to file with the state, then you can use that data anyway. For all of the children. If not, then yeah, we'd have to go back and ask them, but the issue is they didn't report for probably the same reasons that they probably couldn't pull that together right now either. They didn't have the personnel to do it at the time, or it's just one extra
Is
thing.
That Maine County Commissioner
Yeah.
trying to get the.
But I think I'm been on the right side, because my pay has always followed the contract. What they got, I received. Where people who don't have the union underneath them, didn't have that,
Well, see, that's the problem.
didn't get them
We
to.
can get a union.
Oh.
Well, not what I'm saying.
That's not what I'm.
No, but that's what separated
That's
it.
what I'm trying to be.
When I get 7, they all get, they go to
So
5.
for the purpose of tonight, though, I guess, we need to know the non-exempt people you'd be plugging in. So what's your union figure? The other ones we could plug in because they were set. We know what the law enforcement is, we know what the RCC is because you negotiated. So we know those figures are set and that's what we plugged in. Jail, we don't know because we haven't negotiated it yet. So I mean, we can plug in the 3.2 for the non-exempt that aren't part of the union, but what do you want us to do about the union? And for consistency's sake.
Well, that's why I brought it back up.
Yeah.
Oh, I understand. In other words, the union employees, we don't have a contract
We don't have a contract with them for 25.
for the jail.
For the
For the
jail.
jail.
Yeah.
We gotta do something about those.
So you gotta plug something in there right now, but you don't wanna underplug it because then
We
you
don't
don't have
need
enough.
it.
That's right. I think their
But what
negotiations.
about
are
the,
so-
what about the exempt?
So the exempt non-union, it's the same thing you talked about before.
Yeah.
3.2.
Just right now, you're doing 3.2 until you make
And
whatever.
we've agreed that
decision.
we're gonna do 3.2 for exempt as well.
Well, no, what we vote, what we,
Today, I mean, not
Not the final, but
Not
this.
final, but today, what we send to the BAC is gonna be 3.2 for all non-union and exempt.
yes. But I'm wondering, that's what we've agreed to so far. But, well, let's get back to the union here. they need to know what to plug in for the union portion of this budget.
And it's always been a bugaboo, because you don't want to tip your hand with your budget, you don't want your budget to be woefully under when you end up giving them more than the budget, so.
I would say based on recent history, the fact that I haven't received a letter yet, I know they're talking. But I honestly don't see the union getting this finalized by the 1st of December with us. So I mean, this is gonna be one of those ones that you're gonna probably have to just take. Now, you can wait and not make that decision and see where we are in late November, when you finalize your final commissioner's budget, but for now, obviously, it would be
See, and I think that's, for the purpose of VAC, I think we give the jail employees the 3.2. See where we are when it comes back.
so plug everything in jail right now at 3.2.
If you're trying to tip your hand, if you do anything different, we can support 3.2 because that's what all of the,
Well, and that's what Social Security COLA is, that's a published number.
right, and we're giving that to everybody except contracts that have been affected. So I think if we change that to 3.2 for jail employees, and then with the understanding that that's going to be whatever the contract.
And that was the original number that was last, before we changed anything. It was, you had it at 3.2, correct? The last.
Okay, so we're gonna do that.
Yeah. I still am having a
Yep,
little,
everything, you had it at
I'm
3.2.
still having a little heartburn over, you know, what we're gonna do in the end, and we're gonna come in this time way over the VAC.
Only on the contract people.
It is
That
what
was
it
only on the,
Right, this is on.
they're saying everybody.
Right, correct. Yep.
If you look back last year at what BAC did, what we did, we acted more responsibly, I think. So, but honestly, we'll end up doing what we know is right once we get it back. Whatever that is. That's all. One thing about it is we're not up until 910,000, we're looking at a 23% increase.
Well, to be honest, I think that we're gonna be, I don't think we're gonna be at 23, but I think we're gonna be at,
But you have ways to reduce that. Let's move on.
Yeah.
And also, remember, we have the opioid fund too, we can look at, to help reduce that.
but that's not, that's a, help soften it for a budget year.
Right. We'll take just so much per, don't take it all this year, whatever it takes.
Is there time limits on that? That
20
that doesn't expire, right?
20 years supposedly, but I think like the sheriff I discussed, I think they're hitting, they're settling with the larger companies, it appears now. And then it may, you know, then it may, in the smaller company maybe. That's what it appears to me as looking at it.
It's 18 years the way I understand it, and they have, like Tim said, they've settled with the manufacturers and, you know, the Walgreens and places like that. Those have been the big amounts, but they're gonna taper off as that moves along after they've settled.
18 years from,
Yeah.
You don't have it on your.
Oh, the amount.
From whenever we started the first one, what has it been, like 3 years now?
It's just about.
so we got, let's say we have 14, 15.
14 or 15, yeah.
So
Maybe
maybe
we have money too that we haven't spent yet either, so.
Jeez.
700.
So maybe we taper that in over time so that we're not
I mean,
unnecessarily.
hopefully we will be able to be
736,000.
in a
How much?
Position that we can.
Right now, we have
plan like other towns
736,000.
started.
Wow.
Which really is what ultimately counties are doing is they're putting together committees that include resources from all aspects of the county, not just county government, all aspects of the county. And they look at how all those needs can be interwoven. So, yeah, in terms of what you can spend and what you can't spend, so.
We don't get going, I'm gonna
Yep.
order pizzas.
Well, I know, but we gotta solve this, I get it.
We don't, we're not gonna solve it tonight. Michael, first of all, understands that he's gonna try to get whatever data he can.
Yeah.
For the salary thing. And we still can talk about how we're gonna pay that. what we want to do, reduce it 910. That's not for the night. Because we don't know what the 910 is.
Correct.
Go find out, tell us.
All right. Let's move on to IT.
Did you see the email I sent? I said, oh, did you forward to them?
I have forwarded because we. yeah,
Well, I sent Michael an email, I wanted to read it for, forward it to you, is what what recommendation I have, but I know our attorney has been more versed on RFPs. And it shows the staff analysis that the proposals, the two proposals that I broke it down to, and the costs. So you'll
Are
have
you
it,
making a recommendation?
it's in that,
Yeah, so this will be part of your packet that goes.
it's in that packet.
I have a recommendation on packet. Budget items.
But I know
Next
we
week.
need
Does
to have-
Peter agree with your recommendation?
I don't know, I haven't shared it with him.
Please.
I want him, he wants to, he doesn't realize the support we have for this. He doesn't realize, every other county, he's had a sales pitch to pitch at him, to try to get you on board with this and explain that Michael, Sheriff and I have had a lot of discussions and you guys are well versed on what we need to do here and right now we have you on an agreement that it needs to happen, so he's kind of surprised of that. We have
Other counties that have paid that.
I had a little heartburn. They finally, they did it, but they weren't really.
Geez, we had that, we just took some medication, moved on.
Well, but, you know, we said, I kind of think that that's gonna be important for the BAC to hear somehow.
And I'm hoping by next Tuesday, is the BAC before Tuesday?
No.
We want to have, hopefully we're gonna have Peter on Zoom in percent to make a recommendation, then for you to decide way you want to go with it.
Well, but I think that that presentation should be heard by BAC also.
And I feel I can talk with Peter, Michael, I think we can present, I feel comfortable presenting to the BAC why it's needed. Yes.
Okay.
I do what we need to do, what we've done in the past, what this is gonna do for the future of the jail and.
Hopefully save a lobster.
You really need to,
Monica, I'll take a small.
all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you. See you later.
You have
All
fun.
right, IT.
I'd have left if it wasn't for you.
You would have left?
Yeah,
Uh,
there are important changes here, so
Oh,
I
okay.
don't want to miss it.
I'm a little disappointed that we didn't get this breakdown we get every year on the sheriff's department's computer services, everything, Spillman, maintenance. And I mean, that was a lengthy document, there's a lot of money in there, so,
Usually when Spillman bills you, they give you a breakdown
I know,
of
but
the parts.
Spillman's only one of several, you know what I mean? And you know, we're just giving them a blank check for computer services and sheriff's department. We have no idea what to do with that money. Do you?
No.
No. So even IT doesn't know what the sheriff's department, and how much was it? 30-some grand, something?
Where is that?
The sheriff's department's computer budget. Every year they gave us a list and itemized every dime that they spent. Remember that form, Cheryl, we used to have every year? Cheryl did it, and had it all ready for us. And this year, I asked for it.
I brought more and more of it into the computer department, but the Spillman section still is rehabbed with them.
There was so many things on that list.
85,000.
I mean,
They have 85,000 on that.
for computer services,
Yeah,
And I bet most of that is Spillman related.
I mean, this year they're 84,000, so.
can we have a print out of that line for 23,
24,
I mean 24,
I can get it, yep.
not today.
Yeah,
but-
Bill, where are you? I just
He's-
lost
back on-
it.
He's
10,
harkening back to
10.
10,
Yeah,
What's the number? Melissa?
85,000,
No, but the budget
Oh,
line. Line.
10, 30, 325.
10. So,
I don't think it's unreasonable, but I would have to look and see what they're,
so
I don't know what Michelle.
why, I know I'm preempting you, but Banyan is in your department.
That is
No.
correct.
And he's the Spillman coordinator.
That is correct.
So why isn't that amount in spill, that's the argument you're making.
But he's still under ARPA.
He's paid by that.
He's not in 14.
That's not my, that's,
He's
That's
not
not
in
my
14.
No,
Okay,
that's not my,
well, that's my question. So he's under ARPA, where's he gonna go after ARPA?
he has 2 more
14.
years.
he's going to IT.
But he does more than
We
just
got
Spillman. He does the cybersecurity and tech support and other stuff.
He makes me watch any more movies.
But anyways, if we could just have a printout of the year-to-date on.
Yep.
That will, like, that'll help us understand where he's spending it. And do you have that year-to-date in front of you?
No,
No, never mind. No. Well. That's something. All right.
Sorry.
The actual is 84.
Yep.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I'm sitting here saying we finally now have a good professional IT department. Yet we have departments out there doing computer work that the IT director has no idea what it is, is not involved in it. You know,
Well, he is involved in it, but
I'm involved with it, but as far as the cost of Spillman and paying that bill, I do not get involved with that.
we have a Spillman coordinator, that should get moved over here.
Spillman is just a piece, well, you think that's a big piece, so,
I think that's probably at least 90% of that cost.
is that right?
And Michelle, you think?
Yeah, I mean, you can guarantee Spillman every year goes up 5 to 7% every year, maintenance. Easily.
It might not be exactly Spillman, it might call be net motion, which is for the people to get in. with
Which
VPN to
they are
Spillman.
going to have to, because Andy paid for that this year, and next year it has to go back into the sheriff's department.
That's right. So, I bet most of that is Spillman related. It might not be exactly Spillman, but it's Spillman related.
Okay. So remind us again, agency revenues, you charge agencies for certain services, for certain,
That was two departments that,
The UT and the airport.
I remember the airport, I did.
oh, I see, okay, our departments, yeah, okay. That's just the work you do, miscellaneous work you do for them.
Yeah, that's something that was set up by Scott when I first got here. He used to do EMA as well, but EMA stopped paying. So,
Okay. So in the real world, how much of an increase do you want, Chuck?
how much increase? Are you talking about the salary right now?
I'm talking,
Yeah, I'm not, when I put this online, it was in mind thinking of Banyan's in the same boat as I am. And he does not get a regular pay increase, and that's why I put him in there, that's why I drew attention to it. So my real concern is, all right, you guys should take this into account this year, but what's the mechanism in the future for this to stop happening? That's what we really have to adjust. We have to have a mechanism to take care of this. So we don't have the same problem with probate all over again, deeds. And
the problem is, as you see it, is what? What's the problem?
I don't think we have a mechanism to take care of it. Well, how do you say something
Take
like
care
Ben, you get a pay increase? I mean, he gets a COLA, but he never actually sees a pay increase, for like a step increase or is something that the union does. So,
And the problem is department heads always get what the previous department head got when they left, generally an increase. It never dropped back. I mean, so they're not on a scale. It's not like they come brand new, so they go with step A of the scale. Now, if you had a scale, then you'd have to bring them back to the time and service. Do you want to do that with department heads?
Well,
I mean, heaven forbid, if you walked out of here tomorrow, we had to hire another IT guy, could be fun for 95 grand. I don't know. I don't wanna turn the lever on.
Well, to me, I guess we're going back again, but to me, that we need, salary data on a regular basis, to, and I guess the problem is we can't get that on a regular basis. That's part of why
Well, I
we're
mean,
where we are.
I mean, I can go.
I can get you salary data if we search the World Wide Web, but I mean, comparative speaking, that's part of the issue, like what do you compare it with? So even the southern Maine communities probably are making more money, but they also arguably cost more money to live down there right now. So.
But that's not necessarily true, because I've looked at stuff online, and with like Vanya's position, I've looked at what his pays and seen the salary range, and, they give it to you by city, and the cities that are included are Bangor and Brewer, and they're right there with Waterville, and Augusta, Portland, there's not much difference.
I'm searching for a mechanism to do it, because I don't like this argument.
Well, you have the,
But I think that's
you
the issue.
do have the other percentage, the argument here too, exempt, non-exempt, department head. I mean, there are, as he just stated, I mean, there's not a scale to back most department heads into that they're gonna increase. They're gonna get whatever you decide is the yearly increase, which historically has been all over the place, but if it's COLA, then it's a COLA.
And where I worked before, they had a salary range for department heads, said this is what this pays. You start at the lower end of it, and when you get to the end, you were capped, and then you would only get a COLA increase.
Well, I can tell you, years ago, the county hired a professional compensation consultant who did a comprehensive plan for establishing non-exempt salary wages. We went through, and it took us 2 years to do it and whatnot. And it was Ken Witham, and Ken said, don't ask me to do this for exempt department heads. It doesn't exist. So, I mean, what we had for a basis couldn't be applied to department heads, is what he said. And we could do something like talking about EBS.
Yes, correct. We had an idea of how much a VP would make, how much, president, the VPs came up with a scale for each position. And they would say, all right, this is what the position pays, and once you hit the upper limit of it,
And then you apply a COLA to the scale.
that's correct. You just got to pull after that point, when you hit your cap.
So you
But
see
each year that you're there, you get an increase.
Each
Or-
year you're there, you would be up for an increase.
And that works if you're willing to put his replacement back at the beginning of the scale. But if,
And that depends on who you're willing to hire.
well, that's right, if it turns out,
I mean, it
it
is.
turns out that you can't find somebody at the beginning of the scale. Now we're back to, well, we don't give them step C, K, L, what? Okay. Why,
Well,
I'm
I'm gonna say, but when I can give you an example, I interviewed for a job at Viking. They gave me a range of what that salary would pay. Right up front, they said, this is what it will pay. They said, how many years' experience do you have and how much do you have in the lumber industry? How much do you have in computers? So with my experience, I was at the high end of that wage scale. So, I mean, so when you say, how do you determine how they come in? That's how Viking was handling it by interviewing for the job there.
so they have a range of what they would pay.
That's correct. They had a range what they would pay.
So it's not like the non-exempt scale where you start at the bottom and work your way up.
No, it isn't. Because you were talking about how do we address new people coming in? That's how they addressed the new person coming in. It was all based on your experience, and they were willing to pay on the other end because of my experience and how many years I had in the lumber industry.
So to get back to what we were talking about before, you're not gonna solve that problem or question tonight.
No, I'm just,
You
I'm
did with all
thinking
the
of
other
the future.
departments, so.
I'm just throwing out.
Sitting here at
things that are-
6:30 at night, I'm saying to you,
Move on.
unless you're telling us anything different than the 3.2, that's gonna be what's.
Right. I'm
Plugged
just
into
saying,
BAC, or at least.
what bothers me
here
is we
anyway.
need a mechanism in the future.
Just a point, 01-104, why doesn't that say something effective? Director, IT director, or supervisor. Why does that say information technology? That is pay, right? That's wages?
That's what it's always been called.
Just always been that way.
I can,
Change it, make that a title, it's an individual's wages.
Because next we'll have.
because he is IT.
But when we
I
add,
was it, I
when we
was
add
it.
Banyan, you're gonna have, or that position, you're gonna have to create a new line for it, obviously.
And a different title, assistant or
Yeah.
something like that,
Whatever it
right?
is. Yeah.
And that's all the more reason why if we do it now, Banyan makes it easier because you wouldn't call him something and call you information technology.
Price is right, and tell you whatever you want, right?
Information technology, that was the only person.
Yeah, you were the only one, man.
Let's see. Computer software maintenance, I mean contractual, that's your maintenance fees on those
The computer software part of it, the 3320.
320, right?
Yeah, 320. That is actually my software renewal cost for contracts that we have for software. That's what it's,
Renewal for that.
yeah, it's renewal software. The big increase is due to Microsoft increases next year. 2019 Office, which we have on all of our computers, 100 plus of them. That expires in October, and we're going to a new version, which is going to be a significant increase. And then we have new cyber software that we have that we're paying for. That's the second part of the increase.
When you guys log on to the county website to get into the county, but no, do you have to pick, use another or something?
Log into it.
You have to use two different types of methods of sign in. That what you're asking.
Well, I put my login. And I put my password. And then I get this,
Yeah, you have to put in a PIN or you have to scan something.
well, I have to tell them either use what they're offering or use another user. And I have to put
The
that in.
browser probably.
Okay, I'll talk to you. Hang on.
Okay.
Chuck, is there anything in here that we should consider as we develop the offsite that we're looking at? Are you going to need to revise these numbers?
No, these numbers will be unrelated to what we do up there. Up there, we were talking about doing under the ARPA funds, doing a server and then doing peripheral equipment, rack, that type of stuff, all under ARPA, but it shouldn't affect us.
Just, okay. I don't see anything new yet. All right.
There was the addition of the cyber $15,000,
For the reserve account for,
Yeah.
yep. And that's what cyber security software.
which was
feature.
discussed at the original meeting to add that.
Tell us again then. was that-
70-105.
Yeah. 105, that's,
That cyber software that we purchased through ARPA funds that expire in 2028, 29, that will need renewal. And that's just build up funds for those.
Jesus, how much is it?
Uh,
I mean, it must be 50, 60 grand.
Where is that?
70, 105.
Towards the end.
Yeah, okay, I guess.
It was you guys who said we should start building the.
Yes.
Hell, yeah.
And I give a breakdown, this is the breakdown of everything. And also the cyber costs that will expire, when they will expire.
There's the one into your quizzes. We can get rid of that right today. Delete that.
But is it those are the cyber ones that go, expire and use that.
We all set?
Yep. All right, debt overlay.
Oh, I didn't even.
Zero and zero.
Like that.
What's it take to drop this off? Is it
Well, wait a year, we might have debt. I think you could probably indefinitely postpone it so that you wouldn't have to. I don't know, but you'd
I
have to make a motion every year to.
you know, what do you think the debt would be in a couple of years?
Well, you get the TANs, which will be making their turn most likely, the tax anticipation notes. So I mean, we haven't had to do that recently because we had that influx of several million dollars. So I mean, you had money that at least in the bank account to cover your expenses. Well, that's not going to be the case as, you know, we start to move beyond that area.
And so
So I mean,
we may have
it's
to,
been, I mean, if you look at the actual ARPA spending totals, which I give you on those spreadsheets, for 2023, it was 1.5 million for the total for the year. So I mean, but you've been you're trying to use up that money, right? So some of it was payroll, you know, some of it was all these contracts that you're taking the place of. So we're gonna have to be borrowing. Eventually, maybe have to borrow money to get to tax season to.
Dan?
Yep.
well, what about a working capital, setting aside working capital funds and, I mean, that's what some towns do.
Well, you can't do that with ARPA.
No, I understand that. It would be nice if we could.
Right, but I mean, you're already cutting the budget to try to.
No, I realize that, but it may come to that.
But you still wouldn't cover the full amount. I mean,
Right.
you're talking millions of dollars here, potentially. So you're gonna have to borrow that money because we're not gonna have income to cover that otherwise.
And we don't have reserves enough to.
I don't know how you'd come up with reserves. You'd have to set aside so much money right now that
Right.
it just wouldn't make any sense to cover it completely.
And other counties are. So,
And that's common practice.
We had done with you.
Okay,
I don't know if you thought we were.
no, I'm still here.
Thanks. 117.
We decided on those numbers last time, right?
Yeah.
So the only thing that I'd like to seek 100% clarification, because we had a little conversation at the end, but the request from the town of Orno, it's not in here. I'm assuming you're not including it in the budget, but I will need to give them an answer. So I pretty much would tell them that basically, no, it's not in there. And when the grant program comes up, they can resubmit something if they want. Doesn't mean you're gonna give them anything because they're not technically in Hancock County, but
Yeah.
at least under this budget process, no.
I don't think that's open to municipalities asking for some money. Sorry, no. And that's my opinion.
The truth of the matter is there never should be an additional agency involved in 2017. This is strictly for
Unless there
Bar
was
Association.
a law change that required.
You're right.
to fund it, but
mandatory, statutory plans that we have.
3%. All right. 17's done. Health insurance, anything to report?
Nothing to report other than, like I said, I really worked on, some of those numbers. But I'm gonna have to correct, the buyouts in 12, so that they may change slightly. Basically, health insurance numbers are what they are, so.
Do you think if we offered more for buyout, more people would take advantage of it?
Don't have the option, right?
no, I would say no, just from my experience.
No matter what we gave them, they would take advantage.
Yeah,
It's
because-
only in the case where they have they truly have other coverage.
Yeah.
That's the policy. We can't give a buyout to somebody that can't
Right.
prove coverage.
Yeah.
I'm just curious that, I mean, right now it's like 40%, right?
35.
35%.
We increased that 2 years ago.
I mean, if we increase that to 50%, we're still saving money for everybody that took the buyout.
Everybody took it.
Everybody that took it. It doesn't cost us, I mean, it would cost us more, of course, we'd have to give it to others, but I'm just curious. Reserves?
Thanks, Chuck.
Just said.
Fix the reserves.
All right. Questions on the control? You know, the cycle years ago, the town of Stony, they would have a lot of problems down there. So they come to us and say, we need a law enforcement contract. We provide it, calm things down for a couple of years. And then they'd say, what are we paying all this money for? And they'd stop the contract.
And they back out.
Yeah, then go a couple of years, they go back. That was like that pendulum swung back and forth. And I'm almost wondering if it isn't gonna start happening with ACO, that if we get in there and take care of the animal problem, what are we paying all this money for? You know what I mean? And 'cause we've already had one backup, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think more likely case will be that the new people, like I said, like in that case, new people were elected in and were like, what exactly, why are we paying this? And then the people that are there know why they're paying it. And I think that's the majority of what we hear is like, especially the administrative stuff. And it's God saying, because they don't worry about it. They don't have to worry about it at all. It's just like when we contracts for other stuff. It's our problem. So they love it.
Yeah, some towns are really pleased with.
Well, yeah, because they statutorily have to do
They have
this.
to provide it.
Yeah.
And it's gotta cost them more money than what they're paying.
I mean, in some instances,
It's not
the
the
cheap,
problem.
yeah, the cheap towns, the smaller towns, like this barely, or even instruct the people, they don't respond to calls, they just kind of, unless it's a real major thing, you know, I mean, there's ways to keep that cost down, but
Some towns will just can't find it.
yeah. They're basically appointing the first person that they can get either caught into it or have an obligation in some other position, and they just add it on as a job description.
Do we provide that to any town that has an organized police department? Yeah, the Bluesboro, Winter Harbor.
Yeah, like Hillsborough now, that would be the thing, probably the first time.
We do,
Well, no, but
we provide it to Bluesboro?
we just signed that contract.
That was the last one we did, right?
Brooklyn, Franklin, Stonington, Sullivan, Deer Isle, Goldsboro, Hancock, Des Moines, Sedgwick, and Trent,
So,
and
so
whatever.
Bluesboro, that's a case where law enforcement doesn't want to
They
do
don't
it, so
want to
they.
do it either, so
Yeah.
they,
Yeah.
Well, their police department's 2 people, right?
it's not.
What's Bluesboro? Couple full-time?
Was none for a while, but now it's, I think they get back to two.
Yeah, because they have a chief, right?
They have a chief, but I don't know if he's full-time. It's-
One got indicted?
No, it's two, like. I Washington County.
Well, anything we need to know about this?
I don't believe so, I think we hashed it all through the last time.
Nothing's changed, nothing's.
No.
Any other business? So,
Vote to adjourn.
wait a minute.
Vote.
So process wise, you'll come back with this, and we'll have a public hearing.
So what will happen, we'll make the changes we made tonight, then we'll send these that becomes the public hearing budget anyway. We've already put the advertisement on the pier this week to meet the deadline in Ellsworth American. And then I'll be notifying all the clerks and stuff like that, we'll post the meeting. And then you'll have the public hearing on, which you changed to 8:30 now instead of the evening, 8:30 in the morning on the 24th. And then right after the public hearing portion, what we've done recently is we have the two sections after that for you to make any final changes if you want after the public hearing on what you're gonna actually send, put in the DAC books, basically what you're gonna send.
But we've always done that and that 24th.
Well, usually do it the same night or depending on before I came in.
Same morning.
Well,
We never did it in the morning, we always did it at nighttime.
so the BAC, before the BAC portion, but the public hearing, since I've been here, we've added those agenda items on and made any changes right after the public hearing for what you're sending to the BAC.
We did that at a regular meeting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a regular special meeting, same thing.
Yeah.
That's basically what it's been, special.
We had an evening meeting, went through the public hearing.
They made it right after that.
Not last year.
Yeah, because remember they complained that they didn't have the information.
Even though they had a weekend and we told them when they were gonna get it, but they wanted to have everything at the public hearing, which has been a past practice. Us is how do you give them stuff at the public hearing? If that's not the final budget, it may go to the BAC.
This year, they're going to advise the BAC, whatnot. Don't expect the final document at the public hearing.
Which we did last year too. Not everybody either read it or they didn't care and they still wanted to say where is it.
So we don't have any special meetings.
So, I mean, basically, the special meeting is the public hearing. So next week, we have a regular meeting, regular special meeting in the month on 17th. And then the 24th is when you're agreed to set the public hearing. Which then gives enough time to put the binders books together that you have to give to them by the 2nd of October.
Is that all we're doing on the 24th? Is the public
Basically,
hearing?
just the public hearing and then the voting on the final budget to send to the BAC.
You guys got your calendars right in front of you? If you don't know this, October is another one of those months that has 5 Tuesdays. So our regular meeting date is the 1st. And then we should meet again on the 15th. That means if we meet on the 15th, it'd be 3 weeks before we meet again on November 5th. I'd like to propose that we go on the 1st and the 22nd. I'm not going to be available the week of the 15th. Is
Well, what about going, because we're gonna meet on the 24th. Right?
That's September. He's talking about.
Yeah,
right?
we're gonna meet on September 24th. Why not meet the 8th and the 22nd?
That'd be good. That would get every other week, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
That'd be fine, because as long as we don't meet on the 15th, that's all I'm trying to do. So, Michael, we're gonna meet the 24th for a special, a regular is on the 8th of October. That second meeting of the month is the 22nd, and we'll meet again on the 5th of November. Okay.
because we're gonna meet next Tuesday. And we're gonna meet the following Tuesday after that. Do we really need this meeting on the 17th? Why not do everything on the 24th?
Yeah, items that we
You've
need
got a
need
lot.
some action on. Yeah.
Okay.
You clogged that up, I think, but,
Okay,
and we've already told people we're gonna do that, because we scheduled it,
okay.
so. And what we've already started collecting from the department heads and stuff, so.
Now. Now.
It's adjourned.
Second, those in favor?
All right.
Aye. Paul,